additions or changes to the agenda? Yeah.
I believe so.
I make a motion, we accept the agenda as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have 40 RDAs that we can start with. Do you want to do those first?
We're going to have an
44.
informal presentation regarding the property up off of Clap Road,
Okay,
and then we can go into the IDAs.
So that isn't it.
okay. Great. Is you're up?
That's it? Okay.
Just for the record, your name and address, please.
Gene DeBlazin and my wife Ann, and we're 55 Clap Road in Scituate, Massachusetts. We are looking to sell our property. I don't know if you can all see this. That is by Conservation Way, and what's the water supply or conservation area. And you know where the Damon Conservation Land is. If this is, can everybody see this okay?
Yep.
And maybe I'll, is that helpful?
Yeah, or you can put it up on the easel, Gene, I think.
I'll stick another one up and use it. We are under Chapter 61A, and we brought the intent to sell before the town, and one of Chapter 61A is a little bit unclear on who you're supposed to talk to. They list about 12 people. We contacted the assessor's office and also the selectmen, and I briefly talked to Mr. Snow about it too. One of the things that the town came up with was that they didn't feel that they had the money to purchase it, but the possibility of a land swap. And after some negotiations, the quantity of 3 to 1 was discussed for the land.
I'm sorry, I just missed a point. Which is your property? I got everything else, but...
Boyson.
Oh, the blue. Okay, I got it. Yeah, I'm with you.
If I could show you. Our house lot is right here on 55 Clap Road. This is the parcel that we're talking about swapping with the town. That's part of the Damon piece. And this is the piece we're interested in selling. Excuse me for the show.
No, that's right.
Our house lot, this is part of the Damon parcel that we were talking about trading for this piece of land. And this is the water supply. This first parish is here, and that's conservation. Okay?
Gotcha, thanks.
You want to hold this one?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
And basically, we were approached several years ago about developing this land. The developer came up with a plan for it, and we decided not to do that. We were not as interested to put in 10 units into the property, and they went and did quite a bit of work on surveying and looking at the elevations and how it would conform and things like that. But we wanted to keep the land as open space. So we've recently gone through hiring Morse Engineering to go out to survey this land in our property and to get it very detailed and a lot more accurate. And, that's what we've been doing over the last 9 months as far as trying to clarify that. My intent is that to present it to you, to field any questions. This is not about a vote, I realize. And one of the things which I would very much like to come out of the meeting is that you come up and walk the land. The land is before the selectmen as far as consideration of this, and they will be walking it. I would like any of you to walk it, take a look at it. It's beautiful land. Some of the land has been in the family that we bought it from before America was America, and as far as I know, it's never been developed. It's got nice canopies there, and it's very nice land. Are there any questions, or?
I just want to make sure I understand. The smaller lot on the color chart there on the yellow is what you would acquire and then sell as part of your...
That would, we own this land.
Right.
The town owns this land as part of the Damon property.
Right, okay.
And what they were thinking of is this is roughly 9 acres.
Right.
This is roughly 3 acres. There would be a trade for this land for our 9 acres.
Correct. And then you are thinking of selling what you currently have?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, we're under Chapter 6. We're selling this piece of land.
Okay.
And
Now I understand.
At this time of our life, we would like to consolidate more
Okay.
up in this area. And our first action was to try to talk to conservation and
About a swap.
About a swap. Now I understand. Okay.
you know, to try to, because it's beautiful land out there, it's very pristine, and
That's your question.
Is there access to your back piece from the road?
this piece,
Yeah.
that's Conservation Way right there.
Okay,
Yes.
And there's a cul-de-sac right there.
Okay.
With the butts.
I'd be delighted to go out.
did you set a date for the selectmen yet?
We've talked to them, and they have not established a time when they can get out there to walk it, and we're just in discussion about that. And I guess, not in a binding way at all, but I would be very interested in hearing, not a vote, but an intent, if this is something that you're interested in, or it's something that you feel is, you know, kind of outside of the interest, and just sort of reactions from there.
Penny, do you have, and just, maybe we can clarify this, because maybe you guys have some recall or not, but a while back I mentioned to you that Jean had contacted me and
Yes,
that,
quite a while. Yeah, not quite a while, this summer.
and that we wanted to take a look at this.
Right.
Just one quick question, Jean, and maybe I missed the meeting, or maybe it went to the selectmen. You said that this was offered to the town for sale as part of the, I mean, I believe with Chapter 61 land, the town has the right of first refusal or something to that effect. I'm not exactly sure of the law,
The
Mike.
town, if you're going to take it out of open space use, the town has the right of first refusal.
I see.
If you keep it within open space use, then the town does not have first
Okay.
right of refusal.
Okay, so you haven't proceeded with that piece yet, right?
Which piece?
Well, you said it was offered to the town.
Develop, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In the past, the developer approached us about the land, about developing it all. They wanted to purchase it, develop it, and that was several years ago. We said no.
Yeah.
At this point in time, my wife and I are considering, we have enough land around our house, and are more interested in that property than in taking care of the other, which we clear the trails on and things like that.
Okay. So Penny,
Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting idea. I know it would have to go to the legislature. There's a lot of homework that would still have to be done before we do this. We'd have to go to the assessor's office and stuff. And the thing that does concern me, if I'm looking at this properly, that only gives us one way in from Clap Road, that little skinny one.
That little skinny one is more than wide enough to accommodate,
I understand that, but it only gives us one way in, where we had two ways in from Clap.
or just so that everybody understands, the piece of property that's shaded in yellow right now is part of the Damon
Right.
piece,
That-
okay?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have two ways in at the moment, and that would give us just one. And,
Well-
you know, I mean, it's,
Actually, if you think about, though, the abutting the Conservation Way, then you would have two,
yeah,
okay?
if you put a parking there. I mean, I think it sounds like a good idea, but I think we have a lot of homework to do in the meantime before, you know,
Yeah.
we could make a decision. We're always open to.
Well, I think Jean's suggestion to look at the property and walk it, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with it, but I'd certainly be glad to walk with some folks, and I know the selectmen want to
Yeah.
at least have one or two people wanted to do that as well. There was a meeting a few weeks ago that I attended that the selectmen discussed some of this as well.
and last night also. We're very interested in coming and walking on it. The point I was trying to make about the other entrance, it looks small in relation to the whole piece of property, but if you take the drawing that was done up for the parking lot, it's less than half of that little piece wide. So it's a significant width there.
It's just something that needs to be looked at, that's all I'm saying. It
So
isn't a decision I can make tonight or...
Usually what we do is we just kind of roll through all the members, let them have a chance to ask a question of you, have an opportunity to ask anybody in the audience if there's anything, and then you could respond and add to that as you, if that's okay.
Thank you.
I'm good, Frank, thanks.
Richard?
Other than I'd like to go see both parts of the property, yes, I'm good.
Paul?
As Penny said, there's a ton of decisions that are completely outside of our purview, but, from my perspective, it looks like a potential win-win deal where he had a big piece of land abutting the water supply and conservation land, and it looks like it could be potentially a very good thing.
I think it's a great idea to take a look-see and get the ball rolling.
Okay. Pat, did you,
Well, I was just going to say, I think the idea of a walk is a good one, and we may want to coordinate it with Board of Selectmen, and then go through some of the other issues we'd have to discuss.
anybody,
Can I be a devil's advocate?
Is there something new?
Yeah. I have to ask the question, sir, and I'm not trying to insult you or anything else. Why don't you go to CPC with this land and make $17,000 an acre on it? And it would be under conservation. I'm just,
Because that's not as advantageous to us.
To you, okay,
To
you
us.
want that piece of property up front.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where we
okay.
are right now, we have
That's
all the
fine.
trails cleared.
Honest answer,
Can I finish?
yeah?
We have all the trails cleared in our back field, and a lot of times when people think they're walking the town land, they're actually walking in our back field and come into our backyard. So in terms of privacy, it would be a very nice thing. And then it would also allow that other back piece to be preserved from there.
Would that
Okay.
be restricted from building if we did that?
what's that?
Would that piece be restricted from building if we did
I
that?
don't, not unless it was some agreement
Not
that...
unless it
Right.
was drawn up like that?
But
Okay.
it'll be up to the town. If they took possession of it, it's the town's land, and it's up to the town how to dispose of it, or...
When we...
No, I meant his piece.
The Damon parcel was bought
Yeah.
like 2 years ago with community preservation
Right.
funds. And it kind of wraps around, there was that's where I grew up, so there was where the Stenbeck family is, and there was another piece of land that sort of wraps around, and I believe you and Mr. Damon over the years kind of switched around a few pieces, and...
Well, half of the orange land we traded with Roger.
Right. So, they've been good stewards,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, I forget your first name.
Gene
And Ann, sorry. So they've been, great stewards of that piece of property, and they have a beautiful piece of land that's in back of their home, a field, and I think, Pat, you and I actually walked in one time when we were looking at the Hoffman piece, and we walked up to that vernal pool at the back of the field, and then walked back to Colonel Mansfield, but Pat and I walked through part of that. So you've seen the backside of that parcel. And certainly the exchange, and Gene had mentioned to me, he has some other deeds to pieces. I don't know if that's still on the table, but would like to include some of that when we figure out what we can do. I think maybe, how do we want to coordinate this with the selectmen?
Yeah, when they met last night, they talked about wanting to walk it fairly soon, so,
Do we do that through their secretary, or do we,
yeah, we can contact them, I have their email addresses.
why don't we do that, see if we can get something, I don't know whether, it can be some day during the week that works for you, Pat, as well. I think it's important that you go. So if that can't happen, then certainly I think we can make sure we don't get lost out there.
We can, it's fairly clear, the trails and everything back there. And, it would be very easy to walk together. There are a lot of stone granite monuments out there with drill holes, so you know where you are. And I believe it was in the 1800s. It was very accurately surveyed, at least a lot of it.
The piece that's labeled water supply land area is the South Swamp.
Yes.
And so it's pretty easy to define that edge as well. I've never seen a guy happier than Terry McGovern that works, when Greg's firm surveyed the Damon piece, and Terry came bounding out of the woods like he had found $1 million, because he found some bound back in there that had been puzzling him for a while. So you're right, there's a lot of markers and things that have already been flagged, and we should be able to find that. So why don't we, and we appreciate your input in this, and I think there's something that we can hopefully pull together. I know that you're anxious to get this going. Trying to find everybody to do that is sometimes a challenge, but.
I'm not sure of timeframes, but in other words, I don't know exactly how your committee works, but what might be a reasonable period of time where you would walk it? Are we talking weeks, months, years?
I mean, I'd like to do it in the next few weeks. I think it's a good time of year to get out there.
That's fine.
And I think if Pat can shoot something over to the selectmen and then figure out a day, you know, see whose work schedule can accommodate that. I'm certainly glad to do it on the weekend. I know that's harder, you know, Pat is here during the week. So that's what I'm saying, if he can't, or if we have to split it into a couple of things, you know.
Totally willing to take whoever shows up on whatever days they're willing to do it, whether it's during the week or on the weekend, and having tours of the back land.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
I really
in.
appreciate it. So will you
Yeah.
reach out to them? And then we'll,
Yeah, I think they were glad we were meeting informally tonight, and we can get back to them tomorrow.
okay. Do we want to jump into these RDAs and do that?
Yeah, we actually, I don't know what order you have up there.
I have Rhoda, is it Rhoda?
Rhoda.
Rhoda at 88 Grove Street, the septic.
Okay, we also have a public works project too, that, Peggy Beach Road.
Do they want, you want to,
I don't know, I think Kevin brought in the contractor. Should be a quick one.
okay. So Northern Construction, 22 Peggotty Beach Road, stockpile at parking lot. You guys want to hop up here? Just read this, on October 7th, during the 6:15 meeting in Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Northern Construction for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for temporary storage of construction material at Peggotty Beach parking lot for the repair of the seawall at Edward Foster Road, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening. Hi. For the record, your name?
John Graves.
Hey, John. So, I think this is really to just, this isn't, the seawall work that's happening on Edward Foster has already been approved and conditioned. Maybe, I don't know if anybody's been out there, they've already dropped off some equipment. But they need a staging area, and they'd like to do that at the Peggotty Beach parking lot, which is also flood area and jurisdiction. So, anybody, do you want to explain what you want to put there, or?
Sure.
Looking at the map, and I'm not quite sure where you're gonna be putting stuff.
If you were turning into the parking lot,
Yeah?
it would be just at the back corner. I need probably 100 feet by 100-foot square. It would be for storing and assembling our forms and crushed stone that we would bring in ahead of time to use for the construction of the footing.
So is this triangle right here, where you're looking at?
I don't know how big that is. It'd be very small.
You see, you
Oh,
come
yeah,
in
okay.
here.
Yeah, it would be just like this back lot here.
Oh, so.
It wouldn't have to
I
be
see,
all of this, no, not at
That
all.
all floods back there.
I don't need a small,
But you would put hay bales?
Do we need, do they have anything that's going to have sediment?
Right, if it's
No.
crushed
I don't know.
stone, if crushed
But it
stone and
says
forms,
proposed
yeah.
hay
Hay
bale.
bale's not
Yeah.
gonna
Why don't
stop
you
that
look
if
at
it
it?
goes.
Most of the time it's underwater anyway. How long are you gonna be out there?
6 weeks.
Starting when?
starting next week.
Yeah.
We've already rented a lot, pre-tie all our rebar right around the corner of Sunrise. So we were gonna do that out of that lot as well.
And Frank.
We'll see how that's working out, but right now it would just be for keeping our forms, site trailer, and crushed stone.
I think that this plan is actually for some other work
That's
that,
what I was wondering.
that DPW did
That little
before.
triangle was the allocated area,
Right.
the laydown area.
Right.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
So basically, you're looking at to be done basically around Thanksgiving,
Yes.
roughly?
Yes.
Okay.
Bill?
Good.
Richard?
I'm good.
Yeah, no silt, no problem, no fill.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I could point out the triangle, I'm missing it.
All right, what I would be looking for is basically when you come in here, just this corner, 100 by 100.
Okay, we should probably have that marked out on there so we know what area, because we're gonna, you know, if butters are asking us where the area is that is the area you're gonna be using for.
You're looking for the square right
Yeah, just 100, yeah.
100 by 100.
Okay, all right, so we can get that measured out and we'll put it on here. And it's gravel and the equipment, if there's gonna be.
I think he said crushed stone.
Crushed stone, yeah, crushed stone, and we would have a loader parked there,
Yep,
just to load the truck with,
sure. And their forms and a trailer?
and a job trailer, yes.
Yeah, I don't think this plan was drawn for that. This was just to use for reference, so.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody in the audience for this? It's a construction yard at Peggotty Beach parking lot. I don't think it's going to impede any swimmers this time.
No.
Okay.
I make a motion for -3.
Second?
Just want to make sure that we maybe make note of the things that are going to be on there, Carol. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck. I hope the weather cooperates with you.
So it'll go quick, it should go.
And you're going to restore that nice dune when you're all
Yes,
done?
That's all gonna be, beach grass will all be planted back in there in that spot.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's 100 by
Thank you.
100.
Rhoda at 88 Grove Street. October 7th, 2015, during the 6:15 meeting at the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Don Rhoda for determination of applicability of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaws to repair a septic system on property located at 88 Grove Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
For the record, Gregory Morse, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner, Don Rhoda. This is a septic system repair project. Property is at 88 Grove Street. Grove Street, for reference, is at the bottom of the plan here. The property line is shown in bold. The house is centrally located in the front of the lot, serviced by a driveway off of Grove Street. The wetlands we have on the site delineated in blue. This is a bordering vegetated wetland. It was delineated by Brad Holmes, a professional wetland scientist. Off of that, in red, I have the 50-foot buffer zone, and in green, the 100-foot buffer zone. The septic system, right now, all the plumbing comes out the back of the house to a single cesspool. What we're proposing to do, that cesspool has failed the Title V inspection. We're proposing to upgrade it with a new 1,500-gallon septic tank, 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and then a leaching chamber bed. We tried to get the leaching chamber bed as far up on the front of the property as we could. All of the work is outside of the 50-foot buffer zone as far as septic components, the exception being a portion of our force main running through the 50-foot buffer zone here. It's at a minimum distance of about 45 feet from the wetland. It's in an existing lawn and landscaped area. It would go back as lawn and landscaped area.
Wow.
DEP makes a presumption in 10.04, 310 CMR 10.04, that the septic projects with the tanks and the soil absorption systems outside the 50-foot buffer zone are presumed to protect all of the interests of the act. Unfortunately, that presumption does not apply because of the force main that we have on the project here, but we felt that the commission could make the same presumption through a negative determination because it's in an area that's previously been altered. It is not new construction, and it's replacing a failed cesspool.
Can I just ask you a little question? Is there any reason that it's right on the corner, the corner's right on the 50-foot line, that it didn't get moved over, 5 feet or something? See the tank that hits the line?
The reason is because that deck right there, we have stairs coming down, and we started with that septic tank that's about 2 feet off the bottom of those stairs. We were trying to leave the deck intact at that spot.
So that was an existing deck?
It's an existing deck, yeah, the existing stairs, so we're working 2 feet away from those. They're monolithic poured tanks, they don't have the mid-seam on them.
Do you have to do
Oh, I see what
any
you're
clearing
saying.
to put this in? It's already, that area's already cleared?
No, the area's already cleared, there's a little bit of brush in the front corner
Yeah.
that would be cleared out, but out back, all of that's lawn and mulch landscape area.
Where's the existing cesspool? I'm not,
Right underneath where the proposed septic tank is.
oh, all right.
Yep.
So you're going right on top of that? Okay. All right.
Bill?
Good.
Do you
I'm
want to
good.
see this one?
Good.
Lisa?
All set?
Pat?
I think for the purpose of the septic, it's definitely an improvement. Kind of unrelated to that, beyond the pool in the back where it says landscape and fence, back there's been some kind of a, I don't know if it's a fish pond or something created, and there's a lot of, mulch and clearing that goes back toward the tree line within, 15, 20 feet of the buffer. Also, all the yard waste is piled up on the edge of the wetland over by flags 3 and 4. So you may want to talk to the property owner about those two things, but as far as the septic, I think that will definitely help the site.
Well, the pipe is in the 50, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what I'm getting at is, isn't that a minimal bit of mitigation to get them to clean that back out?
Yeah, I mean, it's not on the plan, and it doesn't seem to be any permit for doing it, so they had to dig something out. I mean, the mulch back there is something we probably wouldn't want repeated, and there's very little buffer to the wetlands. So, I mean, we'd probably have a condition that he remove the debris over from the flagged area, and then we can talk to him about is it a fish pond, do you think? Do you know what that is out there?
Personally, I've never gone back that far, I don't know.
Yeah, it's back beyond the pool. but-
Okay.
When was the house built? Do you have any idea?
It's in excess of 50 years ago,
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah, so it was before. That's what's hard when we look at this.
Right, but like Pat said, the debris, that's easy, you can condition
Oh, yeah,
that.
they can at least get the
Yeah.
debris out of there.
Right.
And, but it's hard because it's an established yard that's been there for.
I don't see any flags between 3 and 8 on my plan.
They might be turned off,
Okay.
but
But they're along that line?
Yeah.
it follows that line.
They are in there, yeah.
Okay.
We can certainly remove yard waste if that's a condition, that's,
And just ask them not to do that anymore. We have green connection. We gotta
And,
start.
yeah, he has some upland areas too, he could probably, start
I live in the
using.
West End, if you can't throw your leaves and stuff in the backyard.
Really?
Well, it's that it's
Really?
in a buffer zone and it's almost.
Really?
Where they're throwing it.
You might want to stop talking. Frank.
Yeah, we do try so
I
hard.
mean, we don't
Okay.
live in the backwoods,
All right.
quite. Anybody out there?
Anybody in the audience?
I make
Okay.
a motion.
It's already been moved and seconded.
No? I make a motion for -3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Pat, do you want to keep this one?
Yes, I got those.
About the debris.
I
Yeah.
got 2. Take the other one too, Jack.
Please.
Previous.
Yeah. For the town.
You got that?
All set.
388 Country Way,
Oh, boy.
on October
He's tough.
7, 2015, during the 6:15 meeting of the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Robert and Dorothy Banks for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to repair a septic system on property located at 388 Country Way, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good
How we
evening.
doing? Phil Spath, Spath Engineering.
How are you, Phil?
It's been a while, thank God. And,
Hey, Phil.
We've missed you.
I don't like coming too much here. But anyway, this is for your subsequent again. And we're looking at 388 Country Way. We have the house out front and the wetlands flagged in green, 50-foot buffer in orange, and in white and yellow is 100-foot buffer. What we tried to do, we had a very slow perk, we need a large system. We tried to set it as far back as we can from the wetlands. We have a large, it doesn't show large here, but there must be a 4-foot diameter tree right in here which we're trying to save. So what we're going to be doing is using a drip system to eliminate the filling of the property. We'll have the tanks, which is a treatment unit, pump chamber, and pump it up within this location. It will be 11 feet from the property lines into here, and again, we try to maximize it and to place it right within this area. We'll be approximately 8 feet off the 50-foot buffer to here, and the same with the tanks in this location. There's an existing cesspool which had failed in this location, so place the tanks in here because we're going to have it, the system draining back after it's pumped in. Again, it's a drip. We'll be minimizing the fill. It's all grassed, and it'll remain that way after the system is placed in there.
Penny?
No, I'm all set, I think, Phil.
Bill?
Nope.
I don't really have a question other than an educational one. Tell me what it means when you say a drip system.
What it is, it's like an irrigation system.
Okay.
But it drips in wastewater, all right? And we have a treatment unit which reduces the biological oxygen demand, suspended solids, and you get clean wastewater going in. That's why we can use the drip, because you have no organic material that's going in to clog up the drip.
Okay.
And that's what, it's like an irrigation system.
Okay.
Don't you, like, make that soil a little sandier? It's a more
Well, what we have
porous.
to do is take out the A and B horizon, place sand, place it on the sand, and then 6 inches of topsoil on top of that.
Okay.
It's 6 inches placed below ground. Doesn't freeze, it's never had a freezing problem on these systems.
You don't have a big mound and
Right,
all
Right,
of
and
that.
that's mainly used to eliminate the mound. We have a high groundwater in these locations.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Paul?
Looks good.
Lisa?
Sounds good.
Pat?
Wow.
Yeah, it looks like you couldn't get it any further from the 50. It looks like the system takes that much space, all the chambers that you use. Is that a bigger system as far as chambers go when you have the drip system? Is it larger than the standard?
When you use chambers, you know, we're 6 inches above we're taking 2 feet to the groundwater and then 6 inches of material. Above that is the finished grade. We had models at 6 inches, and in one place we had a 28 up towards the tree. So that way we could reduce the mound. If you're looking at chambers, you're gonna be 3 feet above the groundwater. You got a chamber roughly 13 to 16 inches high, another foot of soil above that. So you eliminate approximately 2 feet of fill, which would have to go on top of that to try to get a chamber system.
But I mean, the length and width of the system, it seems like it is an expanded area that you're covering by using this. Like, you know, we've seen some of the Title V systems that are a lot smaller, but with the drip, you need a larger because you...
Well, no, you don't need the large, the size of the system depending on the perk. And we had like an 85 inch perk, so that would determine the loading level.
Okay.
So you still end up with that type of system for the chambers.
Okay. And when I was out there, I met the property owner, and we talked about, you know, his area for disposing of yard waste is in the wetland, like everybody else. So he wasn't aware that it was wetland, and he said that, oh yeah, he'd move it out. So maybe when the equipment is going back there to dig the hole, you could take it out. There's an opening in the wall maybe they could remove some.
Yeah, as long as you talk, that's fine.
Yeah.
This week, I'll
Yeah.
take it out.
Anybody in the audience? Okay,
I make a motion for number 3.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, nice, thank you.
Sitting here for a minute while I read the next one.
A twofer.
Is it Arena?
Yeah.
2 Aberdeen Drive, on October 7th, 2015, the 6:15 meeting, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Anthony Arena for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to repair a septic system located at 2 Aberdeen Drive, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Engineering. As you see on the plan, we get the house located in this location. We have an existing wetlands line back into here, 50-foot buffer, 100-foot buffer. We did test pits in this location, extremely slow, and we did try to look at the system under here, but we'd be getting really into the 50-foot buffer zone. So what we ended up doing is having to put the tanks and pump chamber. We're going in this location with the drip also. Reason we did that because we have modeling is high into here and eliminate a mound. We're using a drip tank, pump chamber, and pumping up. We can't relocate the plumbing inside the house, so the tanks have to end up staying there. And we're located within that portion of the 50-foot buffer zone from the tank and the pump chamber to pump it up front. Make a long story short.
Okay. Penny?
No, I'm okay. I think.
Bill?
What does it have now?
It has it's got a tank right here, and there's a leaching facility in this area within the 50 and 100-foot buffer.
Between the proposed tanks and the 50, there's a leaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's essentially being eliminated now.
Well, it's failed.
Right.
Yeah.
But the new system is
But
outside.
you'd be taking
Yes.
that out and put, yeah.
Yes.
I'm good.
The system itself, the field, would be outside the tank, and the pump chamber would be.
That's
roughly
where we're going.
in there, right in
Good.
there.
All good.
Paul? Good?
Right direction again.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think the system's a great upgrade. Again, there's cutting in the buffer to the wetland and.
Is there-
burn
oh,
pile
there's
back
yard
there.
waste?
What's that?
There's yard waste?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why does everybody do that?
And other
Where
stuff.
else are they gonna put
Where are they
it?
gonna put it?
That's what everybody does. You live in New England, you live in the woods, you mow the lawn,
I'm
that's...
down the place down the
If
driftway.
everybody
that
brought this
too.
stuff down there, the thing would be overflowing.
I send
fire.
everything
Oh,
down
whoops.
there to the windmill.
That's where I go.
Anybody in the audience for this?
I live in Humrock. But I have no place to put
You
it.
didn't draw any crowd tonight, Phil, but you did a
No crowd at all.
Sorry they went so fast.
toss those to Pat.
I'll slow it down next time if I can.
You can hang out for a
But it's
minute.
good if you do two first, you know?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did we actually vote?
Did we get a
Did we actually
I
vote?
Yeah, we
made the
did.
motion.
Okay.
second? All in favor?
Aye. There we go.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're just having too much fun.
Wow.
I just came for Phil, is it too late to complain?
Never too late for you, Steve.
Any question is?
He objects.
NOIs.
We have an NOI, a continued one, is it Vazola?
Oh, they're gonna continue?
No. I think
did
it
continue.
was continued.
How
do you say that last name?
Bozella.
Vazola?
Yeah, that's a hard one, Frank.
It's phonetic. Poor Frank.
Murdered a few.
That's all I have
Isn't it
now.
Polish or Italian, though?
You got your DCP number, right? That's what I wrote down when we're waiting for.
Well, why don't you let him,
Yeah, I will.
I had,
Make sure he has it.
that we needed to coordinate with DPW. That was, on my list.
Closest point to the seawall.
Oh, you know what? I probably wrote down DCP. My hair.
and your name is?
Darren
record.
Grady from Grady Consulting.
Thanks,
We spoke with Sean McCarthy from DPW.
Yeah.
he had requested that we either move the pilings 10 feet from the seawall or take responsibility for replacement of the deck within that 10 feet of the seawall when the seawall was constructed. You made note that this seawall is on private property right now, and there'd be either an easement or some sort of agreement that would need to go in place before the seawall was repaired by them in either case. My clients decided that he would take responsibility for moving the deck and replacing it at that time, and that's it.
So is there an agreement, like a binding agreement with DPW, or how does that?
No agreement in place right now, so there's nothing for DPW to do on this property because they don't have actually the rights to replace that unless there was some sort of taking or something.
Right, they've never worked on this seawall, I don't believe, right?
So I'm sorry, again, what was the DPW's agreement, or what
They do
did?
have a plan for seawall replacement in there, they just don't have the rights to do it right now, so if they were to go through with the design that they have, then they would have to obtain the rights to do it, and you'd have to be in an agreement with my client. Then they would want us 10 feet off of that seawall, because they have some sort of splash pad between the seawall and the house that they would be installing. And at that point, we would have to tear down our deck to that 10-foot spot and then rebuild.
So they're agreeing to that?
They gave us the choice, since it is on private property, to either take responsibility at that time, if it were ever to happen, or to push our pilings back to the 10-foot mark.
So how do we make that part of that condition?
Right, it would seem like it would have to be something that could be enforced, something in writing on that. So did he suggest any way to do that?
I think you can, actually. It's
that?
private property, so.
Right, but some kind of language that if we do have to get into the wall and you agree to it, then you're gonna have to take the deck down and it's not, falls on the town.
Yeah, it's that if-then
Yeah.
type of thing. You get into that agreement again when you start talking about the rights of access and the repair,
Right.
too. I think, actually, for the record, here should be even something that we could stand behind.
Yeah.
It's spoken about, but again, you're gonna have to go through some sort of agreement as far as access. in
Right.
either case.
And if we took the other choice, I mean, he didn't want to move the pilings back further.
The lumber got bigger, got into steel beams, and we wanted to save it from that.
So, I'm trying to make sure I understand this. This is a raise and rebuild. Part of the raise and rebuild includes a deck.
Yes.
Okay. And so DPW is saying, as far as they're concerned, build away. But someday in the future, if they get an easement to fix the wall, your client wants to bear the responsibility for removing the deck so they have room to fix the wall and put in a splash pad, and then he'll rebuild the deck, which would probably mean they'd have to come back here again. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you need it in writing. That's the first thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Second of all, do we even want to approve it in the first place?
Well, and then we're getting into a thing, how many times has the town come down to the seawall?
Not in my lifetime.
No,
No.
no, the Army Corps put that seawall up.
1938.
And the homeowners are the ones who patch it and work on it.
So I don't
So we're
understand where the
talking about-
town is coming into this and being involved in this.
Well, like on Oceanside Drive, there's a number of private property owners where the walls are, and the town has to get easements from each of the group so that they can work on the wall. And they got a grant to do this.
Right.
Right, but this is
But
private
this is
property.
this is a different animal, this wall is.
Right, on private property. So I,
I think what we've
Those
tried to
seawalls are
do,
private property.
wherever we've been working where we're up against seawalls, is we've tried to make sure that it's not a problem to repair the seawall at some point in the future, if it's a viable alternative. I remember discussing these along Oceanside and whatnot, where people had their deck attached right to the seawall.
Right, Turner Road and Oceanside, yeah.
But possibly those seawalls were owned by the town already. I don't, who knows?
yeah, this is strictly private property. Okay, I have a question. So on either side of the seawall, Are either of those town-owned, or are those also private property? So is it, if one of them is not?
Could be in the Lowell Street right away, that could be town property, and here I believe it's private property. So,
Right, the lots all go varying distances beyond the seawalls. Some are 20 feet, some are way down. If you look at the plot plans, they all go varying depths down the beach.
Okay,
But
so-
the seawall is built across everybody's private property.
Okay, so the one here where the gentleman just said it was town property, or it would be public, so is that where the town wants?
No, those aren't town streets. Those streets are all owned by the abutters.
All
'Cause they
private
don't-
streets.
Yeah, they're all private. They
Oh,
don't meet the
okay.
standards to be turned over to the town.
Okay, so then, again, I don't see where the involvement with the town would be.
I do. I think I do. They are now putting together a plan replacing seawalls. Okay, and some of those.
On private property?
Some of those on Oceanside, I think are private, but we got a grant, and the people are letting us in. I think DPW is looking down the street.
Down the road?
Long range of,
Yeah.
hopefully, and it could be 10 years.
So you
from
put
now,
a
it could be
condition
20.
that says if the seawall needs to be accessed, the owner will bear.
That's what I was saying.
So
That's
wouldn't you,
all we're asking.
wouldn't you
Right?
just
You good
deal
with
with
that?
that at the time?
Yeah.
Why do we,
If-
Well, no, but.
why do we care?
If everybody is on the same page, we just put a condition
Right.
that says the owner will bear expenses for removing the deck if the seawall needs to be
And
repaired by the town.
that's fine.
Yeah, and we can run the
That's all we
wording
have to
by
do for.
the owner and
Because-
Kevin
Yeah.
and Sean,
To-
just
so we
make
can
sure
close the
it
hearing.
captures it. Yeah.
But I think we've been trying to work towards that
Yes.
There's
goal,
backdoor
and
to
it,
this.
it's not gonna be blanket, it's gonna be
Right.
piece by piece
shouldn't
that
have
we
to.
address those.
Right, and each bit of wall is different.
'Cause
Right.
I don't understand.
But I mean, I think we're encouraging raising and rebuilding, so we want to,
Yeah, no, we don't wanna discourage
right,
that.
right.
All I'm saying is
Yeah.
that what we've been trying to do is be sure that when the next, hopefully, whatever happens there, it's not gonna be worse. All of a sudden, you know, you go to fix the wall, and the guy's like, hey, I just, spent $75,000 on my deck.
The odds of this seawall, like the tall ones,
Sure,
are pretty slim.
okay.
So if they're happy with the condition,
I mean, that makes it simple.
It's not really operating like a seawall.
Right.
That's fine.
Whether it's a
What's that?
letter
It's not
from
really
them
operating
or
like a seawall.
condition.
no.
That's great.
Okay, now, on the deck itself, if I'm looking at this, there's just very minimal space between the wall and the deck, am I correct?
Laterally, yes. I believe elevation-wise, there's a significant difference in the deck and the wall. Top of wall 1604, deck is up around 20, so there's a 4.
Deck's higher.
Correct.
Yeah, so the deck's 4 foot higher than the wall.
That answers my question.
Yeah,
So the water's moving.
It's
That's
gonna go
because the
underneath.
all the new
sand, the
decks in
sand's
the
right up to
V-zone
the
have
top
to
of the
be so
wall.
high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
that answers my question.
Do we have BOH approval for the septic yet?
I don't recall.
What health?
I don't know either.
Is that being, was they going to put in a new system at that point?
Yes.
We could approve it pending.
Yeah. Anybody in the audience?
Darren, what are they doing about attachments to the house with the deck? Is there a strict regulation around, they don't want the deck ripping the house apart
There was something in the architecturals.
It's usually a tearaway.
and the structurals?
Right. we
Yeah.
did
Unless it meets the
structural drawings to
elevations.
you
Yep,
guys.
yep.
If
I
you
get
meet,
those.
Yeah.
if you meet the elevation, it can be attached to the house, because the whole structure is elevated per FEMA elevation.
Which is elevation 16.
When people have lower decks,
They have to be tearaway.
in the V-zone, right, that's when
Yeah.
they're not connected.
16 is the V-zone? No.
16, elevation 16 is what they're,
the
from
V-zone?
base elevation in the V-zone
Currently or the new ones?
currently.
Oh,
All we enforce is current.
yep.
That's all we can enforce.
Yeah.
Yep. How much bigger is this house than the previous house?
It's like 200%. It's,
Yeah, it's
it's big.
a big one.
We did go to ZBA, and they have approved it.
Sure, more tax money.
Joe, can I see that?
Yes, sir.
Is there any impervious surfaces on this now?
There is no driveway, it's just roof.
So the whole ground surface is just sand now?
Yes, and yes.
There's some beach grass there too, isn't there? My mistake.
So this is the existing, right? The hatched piece is the existing house, and the new house,
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause there's existing shed, existing dwelling.
is the shed coming down?
Yes. I think it's within the footprint of the house.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
So is the deck, so is part of the existing deck staying?
No, that's coming down. He's just showing you what's there. The new black line is the new structure.
Oh, I see, and then this dotted line is the second floor deck? The house is this line.
Right, right. No, and there's, right. Is that dashed line, is that
Oh,
a
yeah, you're right,
second
it's the
floor?
second floor deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're not afraid of the ocean.
No.
No.
So that line is like the second floor.
Yep.
I got it.
And then steps down to the seawall.
Okay. All right.
So to have a larger footprint, I mean, you're elevated. So you go to zoning and you get the variance, and then you bring that to the building department, and as long as it's elevated, we don't get as involved as,
Well, there's no variance if they meet setbacks. If you meet your side setbacks and your front and rear setback, you don't need a variance to go to a bigger house.
Make a lot.
You just meet zoning setbacks.
We did go to ZBA, and we had a special permit
Okay.
approved.
So where's the setback non-conforming?
Doesn't matter to us.
It's okay.
you know why.
Is that right now it's an existing concrete foundation?
I think part of it is, yes.
So I guess I'm curious, do we need to see any kind of erosion control or anything? They're gonna tear down a house and rip out a foundation, they're gonna regrade the lot, then drive piles, which typically don't generate a lot of
Sediment or
disturbance.
anything, yep.
If you want erosion control, we could put it, it's, the area there's, it's not gonna shift that much.
Right. And we're not disturbing any vegetation or anything?
No, everything's a walking path through there. It's narrow between the house to the left, if you're looking at it towards the ocean. Lowell Street, everybody parks all over Lowell Street, over the property line, right up against the house. There's no vegetation out there.
Okay.
It's all shifting sand and stones.
What do you suggest, Pat, while they're doing the demolition and,
Yeah, I mean, it's more the butters that you'd be concerned getting impacted by it, stuff getting washed into their yard, so maybe, I've been down there, it is parking spots all over the place, and,
Tight quarters.
yeah, I don't know if any vegetation's gonna get disturbed by this.
okay.
So we can get wording on a condition for how the wall thing works.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then maybe we want to do something about a staging area or dumps, I don't know. It's a pretty tight spot.
It
It almost
is.
looks like most of the work or machinery and stuff is all going to be on Lowell Street to build this house. I mean, there's another house right to the back of it.
Yeah.
Typically, we have some stuff about construction debris
Right.
and that sort of
Right,
thing.
and plus Neil might be somebody we could talk to about this too. Duggan.
Take a look at what we've had for other sites that are that close.
Webster Street, some of the Webster Street ones.
Just,
I
Could be-
think down on the ocean, we want that dumpster covered at night and stuff like that.
well, I just think it is an exposed area, and there is a building
Right.
coming out.
I think Webster Street had a chain link fence. The one where the fire was.
Oh,
there.
they
It did, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we need to propose something, that's up to them, whether they need to
Yeah.
protect it or not. I'm more concerned if there's runoff, if there's any problems with the
Right.
foundation, that sort of thing, that could wind up running back towards the water or whatever. I think those are the things we just need to assure. If this was a site that was up against any kind of wetlands area, we'd have erosion control and that sort of thing. I'm not sure that all that's needed here. It might even make more of a mess if there's a storm. But somehow they need to make sure that during these process, if there's a storm coming or whatever, that they're dealing with those issues. We had that problem with that house off of Oceanside where they had a disturbed area. There was a storm, they had runoff, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't see a lot of that happening because it's all sand.
This down off of River Street, or is it off of Central?
It's off a river.
River.
Okay. So we'll get some of that into the
Okay.
orders, and I guess we also just want to make sure it's got Board of Health, right?
Yeah.
Anybody in the audience? Okay.
Make a motion to close with the stipulation we need.
With the conditions, yeah,
And all that stuff.
all that stuff. Is that technical enough for you? Dot, dot, dot. Second,
All that good
All in
stuff.
favor?
I,
guy.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
thank you.
Calkins Construction, 73 Seaside Road, deck replacement. On October,
Which one?
Yeah.
I got a deck replacement written on my
Okay.
sheet here, but a shed on the notice, so. On October 7th, 2015. On October 7th, 2015, at 6:45 PM, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of Calkins Construction to build a replacement shed 10-foot by 19-foot 6 inches on property located at 73 Seaside Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
I am all confused.
I need help with organization.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
GIS shows the house and lot here, but the shed is an old shed down there, and that's coming out. Yeah, that's coming out, and then that's the new lot line, since this was done, so.
Okay.
Did they do the lot line? This the area where that garage is.
Did they redo it? Not to my knowledge, no. It's, the existing shed is just on the lot line of the neighbors.
So it's on their property except for the edge of it that's on there? Because our lot lines on the town GIS show the whole shed and everything outside.
Yeah, I remember when we were in the
Yeah,
office.
right.
Didn't,
So they haven't bought that piece to make it a full lot. That's just a glitch in the GIS that we have.
correct. To the best of my knowledge, I mean, this is existing
Yeah.
conditions, the way it's been drawn up.
Are you raising this up? I know
Yes.
there was questions from it before.
Yeah, so the existing shed right now would be torn down. It's very, very dilapidated and
Right.
tipped and such. So yes, the plan was to raise it up 18 inches off of grade.
What are you sitting it on?
So it's gonna be on concrete pilings, and it will all be, it's all engineered, and you should have the engineering plans to tie it all down. So the concern was that it doesn't end up in the middle of the road or next to someone's house.
Well, we've had those problems
Right.
some winters.
So we went to, I think, pretty grand extremes to
I know the house.
Yeah.
It's the guy who owns.
tie it all down.
Do you want to see that? We got, oh, you got one.
Yeah, we have one down here.
The new one will be the same size as the existing.
Okay, so you're in the 50?
First time I've seen a structural plan for a shed.
Well, it's in the flood zone too.
Yeah.
It's in,
Yeah, well, I'm getting, it says 100 offset from the wetlands. So the wetlands, I'm assuming are back here. I know there was a lot of controversy over another shed down there.
Yeah, that was on the other side, yeah.
Yeah, what?
So is this in Steve Haas's property is to the left, and that's in between Steve's and their property, I think, right? Yeah, it's right to the left of the parking spot.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. It's pretty far away, it's as far away as you can get from the beach, not being the road,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
And how big is the existing shed now?
It's 10 by 20,
So this is smaller?
just slightly.
Yep. And it meets all the codes for the sheds in terms of tie down, and it doesn't have to go up?
Yeah.
It is going
It does,
down.
okay, yep, all right.
if it was 200 or over, we'd have to go through a building permit.
Yep.
So if you keep it just under, but then we ask for a structural plan so that it's elevated, and it's done right, and it's attached. I think if there wasn't an existing shed there, now it would
That'd be
be
a
tough
different
to
story,
sell
yep.
something in the velocity, but taking down something that could wash away and you're elevating and you're securing it, I mean, I think these rules are all gonna be changing at some point, but at this point, I can't find anything saying that you can't do this. There's a lot of vegetation on this lot, though. It'd be good if we could replace
Yeah, that
whatever is gonna be. you
Beach
know,
rows and
Mostly
stuff.
beach roses,
Yes,
yes.
right.
Yep, yep. I do have a picture if anyone wants to.
Yeah, can you just pass that
Yeah.
around?
How do the structural things look, Frank? Is that,
It's the most substantial shed I've seen yet.
I know, well,
they need it at that location?
you want everything to stay inside if the northeast located.
So right now, that shed sits like this, at this angle, and what they want to do is orientate it more like this. It's about the same size as...
It is exactly the same. It's actually slightly smaller. The existing one's 10 by 20.
And then it's gonna be on sonotubes. It's all secured. Yep.
It's good.
You guys wanna see that?
Yeah.
Down there every day.
I actually know the area.
You walk
Seems
into the
reasonable.
dog.
This is a hard place to find. The street addresses are all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
It's Egypt
Yeah, well,
Beach
and
Road.
Bay
it's-
Road and all those, they don't even exist, really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cute little home shed.
The house comes
Where do you
to
live? We'll move it to
a
you.
point in the northeast.
This one,
So,
Oh, isn't that
yeah,
interesting?
along the water.
That's irrelevant, though. You can
Okay.
put 4 garages.
Okay, so
Ever
we
get
good?
to back his trailer or anything?
Oh, okay.
There, I think the thing too with this type of a structure in the velocity zone is during the storm season, getting all the gases and oils and everything out of there.
I
you
did
know?
talk to the homeowner about that.
Yeah,
That was the big
lawnmowers
concern.
and, yeah.
There's no lawnmower, there's no grass.
That's right, no lawnmower,
And
okay.
I'm not even sure, I don't think he doesn't own a snow blower.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because that's what we find floating out in the rivers and all over the place, so.
Well, across the street in the wetland.
And the pond, we got a pond
Right.
across the street
Yeah,
there.
right.
Yeah.
So I guess, I think what would, did anybody, Bill, you're all set?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, looks good. It's
Lisa?
an improvement.
No, it's better.
Yeah, I think I would just run the construction drawings by you for the structural, if that looks good.
Paul and I concur that it's,
Substantial.
it'll probably, if something really happens, that shed will probably be intact somewhere on Hadley Road or something.
Floating down the
Up in my yard.
Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this? I guess the biggest concern would be that they are gonna tear down the shed, and then they're going to excavate for sonotubes, and then build this, and this guy's working around this, so a lot of stuff's gonna get
Right.
trampled.
Yeah.
So there ought to be something in the conditions that it's revegetated
Yep. Yep.
to go along with the beach rows and things that are there now.
Okay.
I think that would be the best thing that we could do for that
Cool.
site. You're gonna have a shed that's more secure
Yes.
and up off the ground, and then it gets revegetated. I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing.
No.
Okay?
So I make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Yeah, without the structural, this, we never would have been able to do this, you
Right.
know, so.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Carol. Carol, when we posted enforcement things, did we say 7:30 start time at the earliest, I think?
At the earliest.
At the earliest, okay, all right.
Okay.
You want to do those orders of condition?
Well, up at the top, too, we
Yeah.
had Kent Street, 75 Kent Street.
Yes.
We took a ride by there. This was a person who, before filing, asked us if it would be something that would be allowed, and it's
Oh, the driveway?
that driveway off of Kent, that when you come off of Kent, you drop down and you bottom out, and it's, she doesn't want a paved driveway, she just wants to be able to raise it up, like the house next door with gravel or seashells or something like this.
Is this the one that we had a set of orders on?
It's to the right of that one.
It's,
Yeah, the one that we had to the left is about a foot higher than this, and they were able to come in off of Kent Street. This one is just sunk and worn down over time, and so she wanted to know if she could raise it up, and I bottomed out going in there, and it's all,
All right. So what would they file?
I mean, I think it would be an IDA if they have a wall and they're just coming up, straight up with material that would allow that, so. And it's an A zone right now.
Do you remember that Penny, the house next door, they
Yes, I
wound
do.
up having
Yeah.
a larger area that was,
and then we had runoff going in, because they are right in the whole house is
Yeah.
actually in the 50-foot.
Yep.
And, but it is a problem driveway, it's definitely a problem.
Yeah.
So you think a wall, Patrick?
I think, well, they have one now, it's like a stoned wall about this high. It's stones all fit together, it's old, it's, 50 years old. So, I don't know, maybe they could come up with some kind of fitted blocks or something that could hold it in.
But they'd stay in that same position.
Same footprint.
You're not going in
They,
the back, 'cause that's
no,
all
if you're at the street, they may want a spot where you can back in to pull out onto the street, but it would be up against the street. So like right now, they have a crescent shaped,
Yeah,
and they may want to be able to, instead of backing out onto Kent, to be able to pull forward and drive out, so.
okay.
I think we could buy one, and stuff.
Yeah.
We just have to be careful that they don't start messing in the back.
Right, right. Oh, yeah, no, they were gonna be sticking to the front, right up against Kent,
Okay,
so.
so I suggest they file
Yeah.
an RDA. What was that Surfside Road? 83 Surfside?
Surfside, I haven't got an answer yet from DEP. This is the one, they're gonna be doing a lot of work on the property, but they wanted to put some walls in. And if they put some kind of walls, are they gonna be directing it towards somebody else? Because I don't think they have walls now. And it was, the landscape architect recommended it.
How far down towards the pond is
It's
that?
down quite a way.
Because I was there this weekend, and it's just like a giant river.
Yeah. Oh, you down there during the
Oh, yeah.
storm? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so, we said we'd ask DEP, but it's an issue of walls and I think they may be A-zone, but I'm not sure, I'll check again. but-
In the past, my knowledge, they haven't allowed any wall,
Right,
except, existing, that's one thing.
yeah. And then, a lot of people throw them in on the weekends, and
I know.
question gets asked, why do all my neighbors have them? And,
Yeah.
but you could be directing water into someone else's property, that's the issue.
Okay.
So I will still talk with someone at DEP just to see if they've put anything in writing. They're supposed to be developing standards for land subject to coastal storm flowage. We actually got a survey today on that from DEP, what we think they should do in that area. So
Okay.
I'll send it to you guys if you want to
Because the
respond to it.
last time somebody did a wall or a fence down there, DEP made it, it has to be out by the end of this month, and it's out for the winter, and that's a slat fence.
Oh, that was a temporary, right,
They
down
can
on
only have it
Surfside.
in, yeah. So I don't think they're gonna allow
Oh.
a permanent.
Was that,
Well, they haven't been all over 140 River Street.
That's for sure.
Well, that's the Army Corps of Engineer.
Well, but DEP
No,
hasn't, they have jurisdiction.
I
to-
hear you.
Yeah.
I just know down the street that we had that big.
was that ended up being the order of conditions?
Yeah, and
it was
DEP came
seasonal?
out, yes. Yeah.
Superseding, okay, I didn't know that was,
Well, what it was somebody else appealed it. It wasn't Concom.
right.
We, and they just made that very strict stipulation. The wooden slat fence had to come out in the end of October, and it doesn't go back in until May.
Huh.
And that's running where the water would run right down into the streets.
I wonder if that would apply to block walls? If there could be a seasonal thing.
A block wall? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Because they'd want the opposite, see, they'd want all winter.
Yeah. Well, you talk to them, but I don't, it doesn't look good to me. but-
So when did you think the wooden one had to come out, Penny? It
It
would,
was the end of October, it'll be out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah. Tom Gillis, Gil?
I wanted to go with that.
Yeah, Tom Gill.
so I'm missing this, what months could they leave it up then? They could only leave it,
In the summer. May to October. End of October, it had to come out.
What was the purpose of that? Was
right,
It was problems. There were neighbor problems. That's why he wanted to put it out.
But it wasn't,
It started off on a property thing.
right.
Their patio was on his land. He wanted a portion of it removed. Then he asked DEP if he could put up a privacy fence because it was very difficult. And DEP said yes, but it had to come down.
Okay.
this is kind of the opposite, we're thinking of a storm season,
Yeah.
where you might want it up in the winter and then take it down on the other one.
I don't see that happening, not from what I saw this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
But ask. That's all you can do, Karen.
Okay, so that'll be on next time.
All right.
All right, now.
Do we want to, we can work on enforcement,
Sure.
and then go back to orders?
Yep.
Okay. Well, 'cause
Yeah, all right, that's all right.
so, 28 Gardner,
28 Garden, I don't know if anybody is here.
Greg. That's Mr. Ayers.
28
Rick Gardner.
I spoke to the property owner, he said he did not receive any notification for tonight. He was unable to attend.
There was a certified letter sent, I believe that might have been returned to us, but there was regular mail, and that didn't get returned. Would you be able to get a message to them? We're doing it by the mailing address that we have.
I think, I know you're the messenger, but I think I went by there the other day and saw somebody cutting that lawn and weed whipping the marsh grass, and,
It's gone on for a while.
yeah. I mean, this started, it's gotta be a couple years ago now.
Before Pat came on, how long have you been
It
here?
was probably 2 years before I came on.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
If you're representing the owner, I think, what do we need to do to really ramp this
Yeah,
up? Did you talk to DEP?
I talked to them today about this. They said, bring it forward to them. They'll get involved.
I think it's time.
Yeah, yeah. I think they would like somebody to come down to Lakeville and go through the 2 or 3 that
Why don't you
we're not getting any cooperation.
Why don't you set it up?
Okay.
I mean, this has just been a joke,
Okay.
and they continue to clear it. You know, we've told them to stop. There's been trees cut. This thing's just gone on for a couple of years, and so I think that's a better course of action than us keep
Okay.
talking about this.
All right.
All right? Can pass that along.
Messenger lucky you.
2 Piggity Beach Road. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
How you doing? So why don't you guys go ahead and state your name and business?
Sure. Attorney Robert Galvin, I represent Christian Hoffler. He's the owner of the subject property. And I think you know Greg.
Yep. Greg Morse, Morse Engineering.
Christian is with me here tonight.
Great. Good evening. So, I think we've been around on this a little bit. Maybe, Pat, do you want to start?
Sure. It goes back a way. It goes back 2008. There was a clearing of vegetation, so an enforcement order was issued. December of 2008, an ANRAD plan was submitted, and then some of the flagging on that was revised. I don't know if this shows, I think this shows the revised flagging. And at that time, it was shown as an isolated vegetated wetland. In 2009, there was filling of wetlands, and there was a requirement to remove the fill by March of 2010 and to submit a revegetation plan by a professional wetland scientist with planting to occur in 2010. 2009, there was a notice of intent filed for a single-family dwelling and to alter an isolated wetland. And in January of 2010, the commission at the time voted to issue a denial order of conditions, and the applicant requested that the notice of intent be withdrawn. But in January of 2010, a letter was mailed by the Concom with the denial OOC for 682170. So that's a paper trail on that. March 2010, Brad Holmes, on behalf of the property owner, submitted a proposed wetland restoration. And this, followed a 2009 proposed mitigation plan by Ross Engineering. And then in 2011, there was a letter from Attorney Galvin indicating that Mr. Hoffler engaged an Ed Rourke to remove the fill and to stabilize the area. Nothing was done, and since then there's been back and forths about we're waiting for something to get done, nothing's been done.
When was the date on when it was going to be removed?
2/11.
2/11.
Let's see, 3/10 was the original time. It appears that something was,
But we got a letter from Attorney Galvin in 2011 stating that the material was going to be removed?
Yep,
Okay,
November 2011.
okay.
You have November, I wrote
That's,
down.
oh, okay, yeah, that's what what could be,
No,
but it's
that's okay.
2011.
Did they say when the material was going to be removed? Was there a date that it was,
Well, it was an order saying it should have been out by March of 2010, but this last one didn't have a date on when Mr. Rourke was going to remove it.
Okay.
So that's where we are now,
Happened.
So we're still waiting for Mr. Rourke to come get the fill?
or somebody to get the fill.
Okay,
We're not waiting for Mr. Rourke to come and get the fill.
okay.
There've been some other discussions that have taken place since that communication. I've kind of communicated, I think, sometimes with Pat, when Pat came on board, offering to try to do some other alternatives or expressing a willingness to try to discuss some other alternatives. Attorney Hoffler owns some other land in town, was willing to donate that. I was trying to float the idea of a concept where there'd be some off-site mitigation, and that's been rejected. I get it. Okay, it's not an issue. So some time has elapsed where I did float those ideas. I get it, we're here tonight. We've engaged Greg Morse. We're not proceeding with Mr. Marabito at this particular point. Greg's charge was to get up to speed as quickly as possible, identify the wetland resource area, make sure that we understand what the resource area is specifically, what its limits were, and come up with a plan to remove the offending fill if that's what's ultimately required, which appears to be very much the case. Greg has been out to the property. I'll let him speak for himself in a minute. I think he can show you the area that he believes, based upon his physical observations of the site, that the fill was located in, because it wasn't over the entire expanse of the area. I think Greg will probably tell you his plan is to identify the scope where the fill is, identify what he thinks the relevant interests are, and his offhand opinion. I know he wants to stake the area of the fill and stake the area of the isolated wetlands. There is a procedural matter that it might make sense for me to address before Greg speaks about his ideas on this. There's a valid order of resource area delineation for an isolated vegetated wetland that expires as a result of the extension of the Permit Extension Act on December 9th of this year. We would like to extend that so that we are not going back to the drawing board and can work with the defined limits that the commission has already approved, at least in terms of the extent of the resource area. It makes it simpler for us. At least we understand what we have to do to fix it and come up with appropriate solutions. So I didn't bring a request for that, but I would make that verbal request and I'll follow it up with a letter to extend that. And it would be simply for the purposes of trying to come up with a solution to take it out.
Can I just address that for a second? Following the ORAD initially, they called an isolated vegetated wetland. There were photos submitted showing that it may actually be a bordering vegetated wetland with a pipe leaving the property, going under Peggotty Beach Road and out to a salt marsh that would be a connection. So, I mean, we don't know for sure on this, but it would be something we may want to investigate before we agree to an extension of an ORAD. I mean, I think,
Did we accept that ORAD before, the one that it's an isolated, that was accepted by the commission?
It was.
When was that done?
2008. Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I think I've been on the commission that long.
No, I remember all this. I think there was a woman who came in and said she was being flooded because of the fill.
Yeah.
There's a letter in the file that
Yeah.
says that she has rainwater on the front of her property. She's across the street, and she's actually in the floodplain. There's a crown on the street. It's not this water.
But can I just, for a second, I do also, though, remember, like, looking at a catch basin or something like that, and trying to determine if there was actually that connection.
Right.
And I don't remember if it was a part of that, I don't recall.
There's a swale along the side of the road, probably outside the layout of the road on this property, probably installed by the town as rudimentary drainage.
But do we know that I guess it wasn't ever shown at the time. I mean, you just mentioned the possibility that there is a connection of some sort of pipe. Greg, did you guys locate any?
I haven't done any survey location yet on this property. No, I did see a catch basin out front during our site walk the other day in the rain, but I haven't investigated any pipes or anything, no.
Okay. I mean, that makes a substantial difference in this project.
I think that Brad Holmes looked for one on the Marsh side initially, and at that time, couldn't find anything. It's really overgrown, there's a lot of phragmites in it. But there are photos in some of these files, there's several files. There's photos of an outlet pipe on that side, but, I mean, again, to find out
Yeah.
the root of the pipe and whether it's connected, it would take a little investigating. But I think as part of what we have to do, we have to look into that.
Right, well, if you want to request the continuance, then we can discuss it and go on from there.
It's ultimately, it may not have a large impact on what we do, but, again, we'd probably be looking for that. So,
Sure.
you want to talk a little bit more?
Sure. So the plan that I have here, this is the plan that was approved for the ANRAD. The ANRAD was issued back in '09. Yeah, sorry, '08, December of '08. So at that time, the commission had reviewed this wetland line. You can see this wetland line here. The area of fill that I'm alleging is out at the site is primarily at the southern end of the site in here. And to what extent it encroaches on this wetland line, I don't know at this point. But what I'd like to do, because I have all of the math for the lot lines here, is to go out and physically stake out these wetland flag locations, so you can see where the wetland line was as approved on this plan. Once we do that, I think a site walk would be beneficial, if not with the commission, certainly with the agent, to review the amount of fill that's been placed there and to review the current condition of the fill that's been placed there. You have 8 interests in your local bylaw, and as an isolated vegetated wetland, this comes under the local bylaw. A lot of the interests in my quick review of that might not apply in this case, being groundwater protection, drinking water supply protection. We're outside of those purviews. Storm damage prevention. This isn't in a floodplain. It's not in any sort of velocity zone. But the one that really comes to mind here as being a protected interest is wildlife habitat. And so what I'd be interested in looking at, once we establish where that line is the vegetation that has grown in those locations. Is it providing significant wildlife habitat right now? Or would the removal of this fill and some sort of replication enhance what's probably naturally revegetated at this point? So that we can quantify, in terms the area of the fill and which interests we're going to be going after with a replication of whatever kind.
Okay. And just, I think it's important for the commission to know, in fairness to this fill being placed there originally, I think that the owner contacted the commission as to whether or not they could put some fill there. And at the time, the agent looked it up, and there was nothing on his map indicating there was wetlands in that area. And so he was initially given permission to deposit that, and then subsequently, through calls from abutters and whatnot, someone went out and said, oh, geez, this has wetlands type thing. So there's a fair amount in play with this. It wasn't...
Well, I mean, we've had outstanding conditions for 5 years that have said remove it, right? Regardless of what was done originally.
I just think it's something that should be noted.
Yeah, okay.
Pat read through most of the things, the history of this, when he went through his notes, but the thing that started this was that depositing of fill by what seemed like they actually did have permission to put it there to start with. Subsequently, we've asked that it be removed, and it has gone on through very lengthy issues, which we'd like to get resolved. But I think we just want to make sure all of that's...
I look for documents stating that, and there's nothing in writing saying,
There's not.
no, there's, I mean, it might have been a verbal.
Attorney Hoffler would tell you exactly what happened if it's relevant, but, he came down to the office, he met with Vinnie Kalishis. Vinnie pulled out a map. This area wasn't delineated on a map as being any type of a resource area.
Yep.
He did this not under the cover of darkness, not over a day or two, it was over extended.
Right, no, and that's a common scenario in a lot of
Doesn't matter.
things that go on.
But I
No,
don't
I'm not-
dispute that it's gotta come out.
Yeah, okay, I'm not saying
Yeah,
it
no.
does, but I
I'm saying
just,
it's relevant, that's relevant
I understand.
information.
How,
May I add one thing, please?
sure.
The fact pattern and the dates that the agent just gave, I think are a little bit backwards. What I said on our review the last week when it was raining out, and I say it again, and if I have to be put on the roll, I'll tell you this. I wouldn't fill in any wetland. I have only one ticket to punch. It's criminal, and it wasn't intentional at all. There was no lawyer to say. I went down there because heirs behind me and his brother had done all sorts of building.
Right.
I had heard that there was supposed to be a retaining wall, which I brought up, Frank, years ago. There
Right.
was supposed to be a big retaining wall, there was supposed to be drains going down to connect into all the sewers that were being put in at the time, et cetera, which all of that was being resewered. I felt that I could probably not perk that. I had that lot in 1975, given to me by my dad. I grew up at 21 next door, and that lot that is on that map is where I used to play baseball on. It was in wet in any way, I used to mow it. There was trees, there were gardens there and stuff like that. I sat down with Vinnie. I said, this is what's going on behind me. It's a good time to do it as well. They were doing all sorts of construction within, from here to that desk. And so I went over everything with Vinnie. I said, 21 Peggotty, which is next door to the house that my parents built, and I lived in during the 50s, was about 5 or 6 feet higher. There's a slope that comes off 21, it's probably still there, and it went down about 5 or 6 feet. I said, because of the development behind me, I want to raise it up. I'm going to bring in some fill, and for the next 3 or 4 months, Tottenham from the Driftway was doing something downtown Scituate on the Conway building, whatever, and he brought the fill in. There was nothing whatsoever that I did intentionally to fill anything. The fact pattern that the agent just gave is a little bit backwards, because it wasn't that I did all this stuff, I identified it, then I brought the fill in. And I think that's not correct.
what he said.
Yeah, I think we kind of got I appreciate that. And I do also recall that the houses being developed behind your property, and we had issues with some runoff and that sort of thing, so
Exactly, that's what,
No,
quite frankly, I think that's why you have the issue with the wetland.
right, well,
If you take a look at those files, a lot of that stuff was never done pursuant to your orders.
sometimes though, and I have a piece of property that was a hayfield when I was a kid and went by on it, but left alone, it's reverted to a wetlands. And sometimes property, when it's left unused or untouched, it actually winds up going back to, there was wetlands that's been cleared in the past. We have other ways to delineate wetlands today that include soils evaluation and things like that. So property that may not have been thought of as wetlands in 1975 or whatever, and then left alone to revegetate, winds up becoming wetlands, or not becoming it, it was always wetlands, but the regulations and whatnot changed. So it's not just that, and maybe there is cases where areas get blocked off, and then an area all of a sudden becomes holding water. If Peggotty Beach Road was elevated or something, before that was built, that might have sloped directly to that, but sort of have to take things where they are.
And there's tree drains all along that street.
Sure.
That, by the way, end up across the street by the parking lot, by the mailboxes there.
Yep.
Same one.
Yep. So we'll get to that, and I think by Greg staking that, and then maybe a site visit, we can take a look at that and see where they are. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think it's important, once we do that staking, we'll we'll bring a hand auger like we'd use when we do a wetland delineation, and we'll be actually able to sample the soil along that line there and see how deep the fill is in certain scenarios as well.
Does that make sense, Pat?
How are you determining where the fill is? What are you saying that the fill area is?
I haven't determined where the fill area
Okay.
is right now.
All right.
What I know is I know where the wetland line is. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go physically
Okay.
place the wetland line in
Gotcha.
the field, and then I think by looking at the material we pull out of some of these auger holes, looking at the vegetation, the maturity of the vegetation,
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll be able to kind of quantify and identify at that point.
What zone is this in, A?
For floodplain?
Yeah.
X. It's out of the floodplain.
Okay. So when do you think that'll take place, Greg?
So within the next week, we'll have it staked out.
All right, so you'll get back to Pat and we'll set up a visit.
Come see you.
Penny?
Greg, I have to ask you a question. You said you believe the fill was just put in the upland area.
Well, I think he said it might go beyond it, but he doesn't really know.
Says I haven't staked yet.
You, but once you stake it, I hope you are walking into that wetlands.
I'm gonna stake the wetland line, and
Yeah.
then we'll know how far the fill extends.
The wetland line has already been delineated in an
I
ORAD.
know, yes,
So let him put that back there so we can see it. Those flags are long gone.
right.
And
Then we
then
can look at topography.
make an
and
attempt
fill
to
and-
see where the fill is.
All right, but you're gonna do the whole property, and not just...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can also look into the permits for the houses that are up above. What's the,
They're on,
When did we go up there, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, and you know the corner I'm looking at.
The heirs houses behind this, I did some research trying to look through your files. I don't believe that there were any conservation permits on the heirs files.
Right.
You're recalling 6 Crescent Ave, which is just to the northwest here, a house that I did last year. I had been given a line, being this line here, for you.
Yeah,
But there were no files in your records for the heirs.
Because nobody thought that there was a wetlands there when that.
Exactly.
Right, no, I think that's,
When were they built? Were they
Same time,
yeah.
07.
same time the fill went up.
07, 08.
but at that time, on the commission, I remember we had a lot of trouble with the GIS maps. I know my brother's a piece of my brother's property, it said it was sopping wet, it's dry as a bone.
I walked in there.
Yes, you did. So that was a period of time we were having a real problem with the GIS. And I did read the minutes, and Vinnie very clearly said, yep, he looked at the GIS map, and it said it wasn't wetlands. And then when he realized, I've made a mistake, we gotta get it delineated. So those are in the minutes, that he did originally say, go ahead, but I made a mistake. We've got to delineate it, and then we found the wetlands in there.
Okay.
Okay.
So we want to move this for a couple of weeks and just say we're going to have this, in the meantime, we'll get this information? Okay. All right? Great.
So we may be going out there within like 2 weeks from now.
Do you want the full
Certainly.
commission with their,
Oh, we'll get as many,
We'll get as many as we can.
okay.
yeah. No.
So we need to continue it, right?
Survey plan, you'll be able to.
I don't think we really have a continuance because this is an enforcement order.
That's right, sorry.
Okay?
We just be added as an agenda item in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
31 Candlewood?
As the stomach turns.
Jerry Campbell. 31 Candlewood. Good evening. How are you? Good, how are you? Good. Pat, do you want to,
Take notes.
Where are we? This another one that's gone on for a while here, but we're making progress. I think the last time we met, we had scheduled a wetland person, Walter Hewitson, to go out there, and there were 3 or 4 steps left, and, yeah. I think at this point, there were 3 things that we've asked to be done to kind of complete this project. There's been a lot of wetland replication has been done. There was some issue over the size of the buffer and the location of the buffer, so we wanted to get a wetland person to go out there and say definitively, here's where the wetland is,
Excuse me, would you mind shutting that door?
and here's where the buffer is.
Thank
So-
you.
Thanks.
That's all right. It's closed.
So, yeah, this letter went out on the 29th, and there's like 3 remaining things we would like to have done. Spoke with Brad Holmes. He had been involved in the property in the past, and he'd be willing to go out there and just to try to accomplish these 3 things. There may be, I think there were a whole bunch of replantings done about a year ago, maybe a little bit before that. And if, maybe they have survived. But the buffer is the big thing. And this one was a vote in the past to have a 25-foot buffer to the agricultural area. And so that's the other thing we'd like to establish. The wetland line was, because it was filled and altered and burned and everything, I think we want Brad to just go out and say, here's where it is now.
Okay.
And that's your understanding, this?
Was he going to do show a plan where they?
Yes.
His plan would be revised, where the initial one showed the trees, the fruit trees down, and we pulled those out. I think that created a lot of confusion.
There were 2 different plans, and I think one, we decided that one was the most accurate. It showed area for pear trees, area for wetland replication, and then a buffer, which could be a mix of types of plantings. And I think because Brad was familiar with it, we were hoping he would be the one that would come back and get involved in this. So,
Okay.
we're getting close.
Do you have anything to add to this, Mr. Kamen?
No,
You think we're pretty close and good?
we just need Brad, I think, to.
Right. I mean, in the end, if it turns out there are pear trees within the 25 feet, they're gonna have to get moved. That's the thing with this. I don't think we'll resolve it until we get a buffer, we get a wetland line, and we get an agreement. So, hopefully, everything is,
So how soon was Brad gonna do that?
he's waiting after tonight to hear from us.
Is there anything else that we need from Mr. Kamen? Are we good?
No, I mean, same thing as no work in the wetland, no work in the buffer. There were abutters that had called me, I don't know if any of them are in attendance, but if there were people that may want to comment.
All right. Is there anybody in the commission want to ask a question or anything with regard to this?
It's nothing new since last year.
I do.
Lisa?
The last time that we were on your property, I remember Pat asking you specifically for a current planting plan, and you had told him that you were going to get that for him. And to the best of my knowledge, you never received a planting plan based on the trees that we had observed being put in.
I think the buffer was the area that we were looking for the planting plan, and some plantings were done. And I think Walter was going to be checking to see what was missing from what was agreed to, and Walter's no longer working on the project. So we do have plants that are shown on Brad's original plan, and while he's out there, he could certainly check those. There was some concern that some of the maples had died. They were too further into the wetland, and they had died. But I think there was a mix of plants that should be able to make it in the buffer area.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience?
In terms of no work that's to be done back
Your name,
there-
sir?
Oh, Andy Francis, I'm one of the abutters.
Okay.
But in terms of like work that's not supposed to be done back there, I mean, the Bobcat's consistently going every night, and I don't know where it is. Maybe you could address that.
Well, I mean, I think that First of all, it shouldn't be in the wetland, and it shouldn't be in the buffer, and if it's in an area approved for trees, which is what we're trying to get to now, we're trying to get, here's the line, nothing beyond that. Maybe conservation posts, everything beyond here is off limits.
Frank.
So the three
Do we have
rows
a
of
cease
pear
and
trees
desist?
that run from
Yeah.
his property
We do?
all the way back.
Well, no, I think he's
Well, we'll
had,
have
in
to-
order to do certain work and there's restoration,
Look at.
which he was doing.
Yeah, if you are starting at the driveway coming onto the property, you take a left, and it's from there all the way to the property line. Yeah, parallel to the back of your property. He's gonna establish where the wetland line is, we're gonna measure 25 feet off that, and then anything in there, I mean, the commission will be voting. My advice would be to have that removed, whatever's in the 25. But any kind of work beyond that, if it looks like it's inside that area, you know, we should be notified, and we'd go out and take a look, but I think it's pretty clear where the wetland is now, where the buffer is, and we're not expecting any work.
And the work of the Bobcat does not occur every night, and it's during the time of the day. So I wasn't aware of any preventions to working on the property.
Just in the buffer and in the wetland.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
No work has
there
been
may
done.
be something townwide about what hours of operation, but it's not our regulation.
So maybe when Brad gets that worked out, I know we've been out a few times, it's been a long time since I've gone out there. When you get something worked up, we'll take a look and
Yeah.
make sure that those pieces have been addressed, and that piece has been done.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could do it this fall, you know, before another winter goes
Well,
by.
maybe get with Brad and make sure he's getting going right away.
Yep.
Be nice to get that all wrapped up. Okay. Does that satisfy your
That's
question
fine.
as well?
If, my only comment would be, if we start to become late in November, I would hesitate additional plantings.
Right.
In that, because
Right.
I've had problems a couple of years ago when I did things in November, you know, it just.
Yeah, we don't want to waste the money on that either, so let's see if we can
I've
get
already
it.
I've already done that.
Sure.
Yeah. I would like to finish it as just,
Bet you would.
that's so.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
All right, well, so who's getting Brad? You or?
I'll get hold of Brad, and we have some funding available to pay for his work out there, because we've held some in guaranteed deposit or an escrow account. And so I'll get
Why
Brad,
don't
and I'll meet him
we take
out
a look
there.
at that and see if that's going to satisfy it? If not, you have to talk to Mr. Kamen, but.
Right. I think, I think most of the plants are in pretty good shape. There may be a few that need to be
Okay.
replaced, so.
All right, well, let's try to
Will
get,
Brad get in touch with me, or should I get in touch?
I'll call Brad, and then maybe we'll both go out.
Okay.
Okay.
You just
Sounds good.
All right.
connect.
Yep.
And let me know.
Okay, good on
Great.
that.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mary's Lane? 31 Mary's Lane?
Okay, did anybody make it out there? I think
I went with you.
Bill and I went, Rich and I went out
You
there.
see if anybody's, who is at 31 Mary's Lane?
There may not be anybody coming from Mary's Lane because the visit with the wetland scientist is tomorrow. So the requirement was that they hire a wetland scientist.
Okay.
And we didn't hear back. Then they got the enforcement on and realized, oh, we really do have to get a wetland scientist. So tomorrow I'm going out there. Penny had inquired, and Workman Row is going out there, but we're going to have to do a lot of auger work because the vegetation is, a lot of vegetation is cut.
Olga said she wouldn't be here tonight, right?
Right. She had
And-
mentioned
But she
that.
is at least getting...
Yes, and there was a letter from her today that I emailed people
Yeah.
about, you know, it was an old farm, and their understanding was they were getting junk out of there, and so, and we'll certainly let her tell her story next time.
Okay.
That's one of those situations like on Clap Road with the old stone wall. At one time, it wasn't that, now it's wetland.
Right, right,
You know, it's,
right.
37 Maryland?
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, yes, okay. You are here?
Been here all night.
Okay. Okay, this one goes back away. Kerry's property, there was some clearing down out.
So your name is?
Oh,
Gary
sorry.
Beers,
37, it's off of Old Oaken Bucket, and it's an area that backs up to the bog. And they were interested in putting up a fenced yard for the dog, and I think, child too, and there was coyotes out in the area, so they did some clearing, and we got a call when I went out there. It was cleared well into the buffer, close to the bog. So we talked about it at that time. Some time went by. They put a fence up, and it was generally in the area where we talked about. And but there's an area now of lawn that extends from the fence toward the bog and the buffer. And I said there's probably a good compromise position here where as long as where the fence is kind of the end of any work, you're about 50 feet from the edge of the buffer to the bog. Well, the bog is kind of unclear too. It's been altered down there. And then she was wondering if there could be a little mowed area outside the fence so that ticks and everything aren't right up against the fence.
Yeah.
So that's when Bill and I went out there, and I think I talked to, Penny. I don't know if anybody else made it out
I've been
there.
out there.
But there's definitely an area that's mowed that's well into the buffer that, my opinion would be it should be reduced.
Okay.
And then the fenced area, I think it's fine, and it's just, we're kind of questioning a mowed strip.
Sure.
at this
How wide's your lawnmower?
Once,
20 feet?
Yeah, Steve, it's a gang mower, it's a big gang mower.
Why
22
would
inches
I
now.
expect anybody else to say that, but,
No, it's a right arm.
Oh, it's
So I want to say 34 or 36.
so maybe 3 feet wide or something like that.
I feel like I
okay.
should know that answer.
That's close enough.
Yeah, the only other thing is.
Don't take any advice from the guy in the black t-shirt.
Over time, there was storage in that area. There's an old wood pile that goes
I think I went
away.
back, I remember this back when that happened,
Shed,
so.
there was a shed,
Wow.
and there's a plow blade, and, the shed and the pile of wood is probably okay. Maybe it'd be a better area for the plow blade, so you're not always going into that area with a truck or whatever.
All right, so can we get some good direct, you understand where you're supposed to be?
Sort of. When I was first, I was called by Patrick 2 years ago.
Must have been almost, yeah. must have
yeah.
been.
Yes, I bought the house in 2012. I had no idea conservation, but I'm learning quickly. He came out, he showed me where the fence, and then we stopped.
Yeah, the fence wasn't, it was
Right.
cleared by.
Right, and you told me where I
Yeah.
could put the fence.
Where the turtle nest was.
Yes, exactly.
Snapping turtles,
Yes.
Yes.
And I did not cut down any trees. It was an overgrown garden when I purchased the home. So we brought in a rake, raked it out, put down grass seed. I did not know where the buffer was. I'm not quite sure where it ends, but
Right.
I just want the fenced-in part to maintain the grass that's already there and was there for the kids. And just to be able to access the shed that's been there, because that's where we keep the power wheels and stuff.
Yeah, that goes back before the Wetland Protection Act.
Okay.
The shed is into the 50?
Yeah, it's an old.
But it's been there.
shed that
Yep.
You could
I've
make
been
a
there.
trail to and. yeah.
So can we just call the wetlands the fence? And have
Well,
done
not
with
the
it?
wetlands, but the buffer.
I mean, the buffer.
Yeah, and then the strip to keep the ticks
but
down.
When we were out there, Pat, there really was
One
an
spot.
area that could be done without really disturbing anything, wasn't there? When you and I walked in?
Well, there's a grassed area that's
Right.
probably 15 feet or so, but if that could grow back.
Right.
And just mow just outside.
Just mow a
So if you keep
outside
a
the
strip
fence.
so that you don't have vines and everything growing on the
Right,
fence.
yeah, that's all I wanted.
Right.
It's 3 feet
And then
wide.
the other stuff grows.
And then a path
stay
to
out
the
of
shed
it.
or whatever, and right around the shed,
Yeah.
a small area to keep it from being overgrown. So what do we need to formalize this?
We sent a violation letter, and we could just add to the file that we agreed at such and such a meeting. We could take the minutes and put them in there.
Okay.
And then we'll check you once a week
can we
for
put all
several
those
years.
No.
Done, but.
Only if you mow the strip while you're
Yeah,
there, right?
right. No, it was clearly, nobody had intended to get into any buffer, and, we're trying to preserve buffers and wetlands and everything, so we try to use it as an educational
You know, I
thing.
didn't do anything.
I know, there's no trees have been
Yeah.
cut or anything.
No, yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make one point, and this is just me, and this is my viewpoint. A buffer zone, 50 feet. It's supposed to be no disturb. All right?
Right, and it's
Running along more behind the fence, you're in the buffer zone. That's all I have to say. We're always encroaching.
Right. No, we understand what you're saying, and I think that the request was based on ticks and little children, and
You
we
know
said
what?
maybe a
I've got
scrub.
woods in
I
my
understand, I know what
yard,
you're saying,
have
I know what you're
ticks,
saying.
My dog got Lyme. I mean, it's like,
But after you established where the 50-foot buffer was, there was no more work done in that
No,
after
no,
that?
just, I mean, grass seed was put down, but
Okay.
no
Okay.
cutting of anything. But I don't think it was clear that you couldn't plant grass there. It was
Okay.
just disturbed soil at the time. So.
Okay.
but we just seem to always be losing part of the 50-foot.
But I don't think this was a undisturbed area to start with. I mean, from what I gather, I mean, there's a shed, there was other things. At one time, this was more cleared that then grew back.
Exactly.
So Pat came up with a determination of where the fence could go.
Yeah, I hear, I'm just stating my little thing,
Okay.
that 50.
So we've got an area that's protected now.
Yeah, and there's a fenced area, and there's a, yeah,
Okay.
an area will grow back, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Great. Thank you.
thanks for coming in, Karen.
Thank you.
392 Tilden?
The letter was returned. There's, I don't believe this person received the information, but we sent it certified, so it was never picked up. So this is in your neighborhood, Bill. I think we knocked on the door the first time.
Oh,
Yeah.
you and
So-
I went out there?
Yep, yep.
And I thought he was gonna work with
Yeah,
us.
this spring is what we said.
Oh,
So that's the only one on tonight's that we misconnected. We
That
haven't
was
spoken
the
to him yet.
lobster traps? and-
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So,
And the
But
falling down building.
when you did talk to him, he seemed
Yep.
cooperative and
Yep,
receptive to
that's
making
right. So
some
I
changes.
do believe he hasn't received the letter because it was certified, so.
Gotcha.
So
you
what are we
knock on
gonna
the
do?
door,
Yeah.
knock on the door, or
Let's
find a
go.
phone number and call, we'll get him on for next
Let's go
time.
visit him.
Can you hand him the letter?
Yeah, you could.
That's it.
Put it under the
Wow.
door, yeah. If they're still there. Yeah.
So what, you afraid?
That was.
He's really nice.
Yeah, but
Oh, yeah, he's real tall. Very tall.
Okay, so, so are we, so 257 Country Way?
Yes, yep. This
Hi,
will-
come on up. What did you do?
it's not an
Listen, I'm a
uncommon.
Severman by marriage, all right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is,
And your name, just for the record? What is it?
Elisa.
Elisa.
this was a little confusing. It was farmland, and a piece of property was pulled out for a house lot, and it was outside, everything was outside the 50, but they never had to file with us.
Sure.
And so, but there was an old plan showing with a wetland line. And
Right.
so we went out there and it looked like it was disturbed beyond that. So I talked to Alyssa about,
Yep,
you know,
you
we
can
have 50-foot buffer, and so we have nothing marking that, but what you would like to do is move beyond the 50, and it was, you know, pretty much telling them we have a 50, but there's also a farming issue out back that you could probably some.
Yeah, well, basically, really what we want to get out of this, and I emailed Patrick earlier this week, is we want to just be able to leave the grass where it is, which I think is fine, because when Patrick came out, it didn't seem to be an issue. So we want to be able to move that, and then after the grass, until it hits the woods,
Yeah.
I think the 50-foot buffer is actually in there somewhere. So we don't want to disturb any of that. What we want to be able to do is either clear it, flatten it, something twice a year, because there are, I don't know if any of you guys live near Country Way, but we have two small kids. The coyotes, you can't see in that grass. I mean, the grass gets taller than I am. It's always been farmed up until last year. I get the fact that we put a house there, so it changes the rules, but we want to just be able to do that. Now, Ronnie Simons, who also rents the land, he does, you know, all the stuff in October, he does all that, and he has done those small children's pumpkin drop back there last year and the year before. This year, since it's happening this Saturday, he's gonna move it because we haven't been able to meet.
but he would like to still be able to do it back there. He won't plant, I've already talked to him, we'll leave it alone, but just again, want to be able to clear it, flatten it, something, twice a year so we can see beyond.
Alyssa, what do you mean by clear?
Well, the grass was so tall, so I don't know if we could, mow it halfway down so we could see over it, anything.
That's what I was.
Yeah, anything,
Yeah,
just so
that's my
we can see, because we got, two little kids, they're back there all the time.
How far do you want to mow this grass?
We don't
The
want to
whole
mow it
50
anywhere,
wants
no, we don't want to mow it anywhere where it's already grass. I don't want to mow the back, I want to be able to either clear it just twice a year. just
Why don't you
for the
say
grass.
cut it rather than clear it? I mean, clearing sounds like
Well,
it's
yeah,
getting,
we can cut it, whatever you guys agree upon. Patrick and I sat and we talked and we figured we could work something out, so.
So help me understand. So this is within the 50, and you want to mow grass?
We're not even in the 50. The 50.
here, let's look at this here, Lisa. Here's the back of the house. The 100-foot line is probably 20 feet off the house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
So then here is the 50 to 100.
Okay.
So are they going beyond the 50?
Well, it's unclear if the house was built where the original plan was. The house may be even further away, because we don't have an as-built. We never had a plan for this. And you were saying the house may have been
I think we may have even moved it up a little. I
pulled
can't
up.
remember.
Yeah.
So how do we make a decision if we don't know where?
Is there any 50-foot,
50
are there
is.
any wetlands flags left?
There was, when you guys were out there, it looked like the tree line on the back left
That's the wetlands.
was the edge of the wetlands.
That was the edge of the wetlands.
It does drop off.
And when we were there, the 50-foot stakes were still in, which was a few years back, okay? Once again, I'm looking from the 50 to go from the tree line, come up 50 feet. It's supposed to be a no disturb, go back to Mother Nature. In all honesty.
And we're not touching that, as far as I'm concerned, right?
This
may or may not. It's hard to
summer it
tell,
looked like
but
you went down into the tree line.
No, we didn't clear anything.
Well, no, I was out there the other day. There's quite a grassed buffer now. And if that were to stay, that would be okay. But I think you're talking about maybe taking that down a bit. But
Take it, when, we're talking about mowing it.
Yeah.
A couple of times a year, like.
Understand what we're talking
It's
about.
really only in the summer months.
Right.
I think, Pat, when you were there, it may have been, it was pretty tall.
Yeah.
It was way above the kids' heads.
If you fence that in and put goats there, you can do whatever you want.
Right? Well, we have 2 goats already, and a donkey.
There you go. Let them out.
We'll let them chomp away.
I know, right?
Put an electric fence and.
Then you'd have no chemicals, it would be natural.
I know.
Like the last hearing we had right before this one, there was, a fence was put up. So I mean, in some ways, if you want to keep the kids out of the back grassed
Right,
area.
and I get that, but it's
Yeah.
expensive, with taxes and everything else going up, it's just, and that land has always been farmed, it's always been cleared, just up and, literally this year was the only year we have not cleared it.
Because you're out of 61, so you don't fall
I know, and
under farming
I mentioned
anymore.
that I
You
realized
know, and-
because of the house,
Yeah.
that it's not in that anymore. What I'm requesting is that we are able to somewhat clear it twice a year, that's it.
So I think probably the best bet is just to mark the 50-foot buffer in, it's best, it can be marked, and then just stay out of it. Just go to the 50-foot buffer and stop.
And stop, because it is supposed to be habitat.
And that is the change that you made. When you took the property out of that farm status, you give up certain uses of that property. People in agriculture can do things near the wetlands that you can't in a residential area. I mean, that's not our rule, that's the state. And so I think you have to observe the 50-foot buffer. And I think if it can be marked in some way with some stakes or whatever, or maybe a few trees that remain so that nobody has to guess where that is, and sort of.
Yeah, there's no trees back there.
Right.
It's all.
But if there were, if you planted a few small trees or something along that area, so you know what that 50-foot buffer is, and then just let that grow wild beyond that, unless you want to, that's really what you have to do.
So there's no way that we would be able to, once or twice a year, just clear any of it in the back. Just to cut it down enough
To the
so we can
50 foot.
see. I mean, there's so, you know, I mean, the animals are unpredictable out there. I don't know if you guys anywhere live around there, but every night you hear them out there, you know?
But the,
Every night, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it,
But, I mean, if you got two small kids running around, I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna take the chance, my kids or anybody else's kids. you
Well,
know?
I wouldn't let them out if there's
Well,
animals out there.
you know what,
They
every,
can never go in the
yeah.
yard, I mean, that's, you know?
again, though, what you've done, at one point, when this was all farmland, they had the ability to clear or go as close to the wetlands as they had before. You've taken it out of farmland, you've created a home. When anybody builds a home, they have to abide by the setbacks for the wetlands.
And I totally get it.
Okay,
I totally get it.
so-
I've read all the laws, I've read everything. When we built the house, we did our research, and we sat with Steve on multiple occasions, and he said to us, it doesn't matter, you guys are still under the 61A, you take 253 Country Way out, you put your house in, it's 61A. You do what you want. You can farm up to your front door, you can farm up to your back door. That's
Steve, this land,
Steve, the assessor's office. So we made sure, because we didn't want to run into any issues down the line.
so your understanding is that your property is still in 61A, even though there's a house there?
257 Country Way is now the entire farm. Everything was sectioned out. 253 Country Way used to be that entire plot.
Right.
But what we did was 253 came out. That's a half-acre lot all by itself.
That's the land that you're on?
No, we're on 257. We're the house in the back, and all the land is all 257 Country Way. It was
Okay.
all deeded over. New address, everything.
So 257 is under 61?
256, yes, I have the 61A paperwork actually that just came to the house, and it's under 253 Country Way, so I have to call Steve and just let him know he's got the wrong address. 253 is just the farm stand, the half-acre lot.
No, that's
Everything was redone.
Did they do a Form A lot, or how did they break out your piece of land? It would seem like they've created a lot under a different category.
I don't
The
know
old-
how that was done, but
I went to Neil about this when it first came out, before you got here, and he's the one that told me. It came out, there is a piece of land was cut out for the house, and that was out of 61. You're gonna have to talk to Neil, because it's in their files down there. That's where I got the plot.
Can you come up and take a look at this for 1 second?
Okay, from Neil.
because if
So
we-
here's the farm stand.
Yeah.
This is your lot.
Nope, this is all ours. All of this is all deeded to Brian Steverman, who was my husband.
All the way over to here?
Yep,
Here?
all of it, all of this. What happened was this was taken out.
Okay.
This is all the farm.
Hmm.
So I think that's where the confusion's coming in.
Sounds like it.
Could be.
All right, well, let's get that clarified.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing you brought up to Alyssa was the, twice-a-year clearing, and unfortunately, our bylaw, the way it's worded is no disturb 50, so
They might not have done all
doesn't allow
that.
for those kind of things. I mean, if it turns out your area now is 75 feet from the wetland, then you would have 25 feet you could collect, you know?
Right, well, when you came out and we spoke, you said that there was a possibility we could work something out.
Why don't we just approve
Yeah, it
what
might
it
be a
is?
little further than 50.
Well, maybe
fix it,
once
right?
this
Has a
all.
backyard.
Yeah.
When I was out
Right,
there and
right.
they marked, you definitely have some footage of the house
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, all right, you know what?
That's interesting.
You're not doing anything right now. I think the first thing we gotta know is if all of this, if this is all still in 61A, then we're talking about something entirely
Right.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's get that resolved.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we set it up.
See, you went to somebody and I went to Neil.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they need to
Alyssa?
work together.
Can you get the plot plan,
Yep,
okay, that show, and then and talk to Steve and get us something back that shows that all that property is still in 61A? Would you do that? Should be
Absolutely.
part of your tax records, obviously.
it is, yeah, that's exactly what it is, and I fill out that form every year for the 61A, you gotta fill it out, I fill it out, actually, I have it, I gotta fill it out and give it
All
to
right.
Steve.
Get that and get it back to
Yeah.
Pat, okay?
Okay.
And then that could change dramatically.
That'd be great.
Okay?
Yeah, awesome.
And you can farm it, you can grow hay, you can do
Right?
Do whatever you want, if it's still all 61.
Great. Thank
Maybe
you.
one of those Stearmans will want to be a farmer again, you know?
You know, they would have still done it, except they're
I know,
falling apart.
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. 13 Bulrush Farm, or Bulrush,
They have a wetland person that went out, Steve Ivas went out there and flagged it, and he went out yesterday. So we told him, you know, when he's got a report, get back to us, we'll have them on for the next meeting.
great. Well, that's good.
Progress.
It's been a while.
A lot of progress.
Okay.
And then 168 Central Ave?
Yes, that's, oh, okay, sure. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
That's it. Send one of those down. That's all I can show. There's two. And I'm sorry, for the record, your name, sir?
William McKenna.
James McKenna.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say a few things. My name is William McKenna, 168 Central Ave, and I've been a summer resident or full-time resident off and on for 71 years. And I've lived through quite a few storms in my life, including the blizzard of 78, which I lost my decking on that right side.
But actually, Mr. McKim, before you do this, Pat, can you just give us a little heads up as to why?
Yeah, I think we met Mr. McKinnon during the Cote hearings.
Right.
And there was concern that if they elevated and cleared part of that sand dune, that his property would get additional water as, in the greenhouse.
Right.
And so, what probably should have happened was request a permit, come in for an application, and try to get a RDA or order of conditions for a wall.
So what do we have here now?
We have an enforcement order because a wall was put in without a permit. So, and it's on one side of the house, it's on the side facing the empty lot.
So Mr.
south side.
McKinnon constructed a wall without a permit on that property?
Yep.
Okay.
And basically, the property at 166 Central Ave, they did by the way, the new owners did a wonderful job on clearing the land and everything else, and I was very happy with it, except for one thing, you know, when they put the leaching field in, it has to be 4 feet above the water line, which is required. And that brought the level of their property up higher than my 8-inch wall, retaining wall I had on the right-hand side. And the property comes down approximately 2 feet from where the leaching, and from the right-hand side of their property down to my property it comes down about 2 feet.
Right.
And I was very concerned about the wash based on ocean coming over. I also got an abutters notice that they are going up on Atlantic Ave, which opens that up tremendously. So I was exploring different options, putting a wooden fence there, sometime that would save the vulnerability of my decking, as you can see on the right-hand side, and also landscaping, which I put in about $16,000 worth of landscaping. I explored different options, and I met this contractor, and he said, you don't raise it over 3 feet, and it's on an existing wall, no problem. And I listened to him, and I probably should have. He said, because it's 100 feet away from the water and all that stuff. Maybe because I was so anxious, I jumped at that, and I probably shouldn't have.
Sure.
Mr. McKinnon, excuse me, and I mean no disrespect at all, but I recall you were here when we were having the hearings for the Cote property, and I recall you being concerned, the same concerns you just expressed. And I recall us saying, you know, if you want to raise a wall, just come into us and we'll see what we can do to give you the right.
There was I'm sorry, Bridget, what happened here was, I wasn't putting, it was putting a wall in, that's what I thought. To raise an existing wall, that's what put me off, you know what I mean? And that's something that I should have taken into consideration.
So is this wall poured on top of what was already existing?
Yes, it was an existing wall that had been in place.
And it's rebarred, they screwed in the rebars.
So they didn't dig it
No,
out?
they didn't dig anything.
How much higher is it now?
Just a foot.
A foot?
It shows on the thing here, it goes from 18 inches in the beginning above my existing wall, all the way to 29 inches, and then it drops down to 22 inches.
So can I just, because we get a lot of stuff going on, can this be conditioned on, is this something that could be conditioned? I mean, should he file an RDA for this?
This
And
came
after
up,
the fact?
this came up earlier tonight about, we need to talk to DEP about something like this, would it be allowed under any case? I mean, I would say maybe an after the fact, and then we could say, you know, there was a wall in place to protect his property, he was trying to raise it, is this something that's gonna be allowed? Because, I mean, our big concern is we don't want to impact somebody by you directing water onto their property.
Or vice versa?
But there's no,
Or vice versa.
but there's no impact because it's a vacant lot.
But I mean, across the street, or channeling a wetland area across the
So-
street too. I mean, there's a lot of different concerns, but we need to follow the rules, and in this case, you had a wall, you made it higher, is that going to impact? And
Right.
we should, you know, we could recommend a filing, and after the fact filing.
Rick Duffy asked to do this, to raise a wall, and we didn't allow it.
No.
That's true.
They didn't.
The only difference is one was parallel and one
That
was
was
perpendicular.
Yeah, it was perpendicular.
Because Duffy's wall would have stopped, it would
Right, that
block
was-
the path of water.
that's right, that's parallel.
Where
This is
this wall
perpendicular.
is parallel with his house,
Right.
and
Where's the
raising
regulation
the
that
height of the
delineates-
wall
There's regulation
doesn't
on the site
impact
that
people
delineates
anymore.
the
What it does is,
orientation of the wall.
because
One at a time.
the house is going up on piles, that water is, that's going to now become a new flood point on Central Ave, but it's also going to go right over into his driveway, go into his house, and all he was doing is raising it to hope to keep it to run along the wall instead of going into his house. But he just should have come to us first.
Well, let's,
Well, it may be more than that.
let's, I think Pat's thought on this of getting a little bit of input from DEP. I mean, if we're gonna tell Mr. McKinnon to file an after the fact, to some degree, you're making the assumption that what he did was okay. And the part that you can't know is what direction the water's gonna come from. I mean, if we assume that every time it just goes straight over the road, and the water's running parallel with that wall, then it really doesn't matter. But if the water's coming from either in a different direction, it could to some degree change the flow of that water. I think Pat's solution to ask DEP,
No, I don't understand.
A barrier beach is a resource area that has coastal flowage, and it isn't linear, it isn't perpendicular, it flows across the barrier beach.
This is a highly developed barrier beach.
But again, water flows
barrier
over it.
beach.
It's coastal storm flowage.
so I think to, again, if, take what Pat's saying, is let's get a little bit of guidance from DEP. I mean, they've been changing their rulings, they've been having some discussion, they've been allowing some things, they haven't allowed some things, get a little bit of input from DEP, and then give Mr. McKinnon some guidance as to whether or not he should file, because his neighbors, just as he had the opportunity to come and speak when his neighbors were altering their property, his neighbors have the right to come and look at this as well. To anybody's point.
Right.
If someone's altering something next to your home, and it's in that area, you have the right to know about it, and to come and express your concerns or support.
Could I just
Sure.
say something? And because of the leaching field 4 feet above water level,
Yeah,
they couldn't lower their property.
right.
And so what's happening is by doing that, it's caused the water to head towards.
And all those things are arguable.
Okay.
But-
I'm just saying that because of changes of that property, the flow of water has changed.
All those things are arguable, Mr. McKinnon, but the point is that this should be done in a process where everybody that surrounds it, just as you had the opportunity when your neighbors were altering their property, to come in and make sure that it doesn't impact them, or that it's in compliance with the DEP rules and regulations. Am I?
Right, I mean, one person I talked to said, take the wall out. But it isn't a ruling from DEP. It was someone within the system that said, walls can't go up, you gotta take them out. Now, we have 3. We have one that's a block wall that fits in place that could be removed. We have another.
But a wall didn't go up, it was added to an existing wall.
Right, but it's the same thing. It's a big chunk of wall in a driveway. And then this one is added to an existing one. They're all kind of a little bit different, but as Frank was saying, you do have the right to a public hearing so that abutters and neighbors and everybody else can have a hearing, I mean, I would encourage an after the fact, and at the same time, I'll go look
All right.
at the deed, because it's already in place.
So, and after the fact filing, basically, you're gonna file the paperwork that should have been done. He can start with an RDA, correct? Or do you think it should just be an NOI?
Well, if you do an NOI, then you have a butter notification, and you have,
Can you, maybe you can give Mr. McKenna a little bit of guidance with that, but you're gonna, I think that's the only way that you're gonna be able to hang on to
Make
this, is
everybody
to
happy.
file properly, so.
right, and I think the argument that a wall was in place is different than you plowed up a sand dune and put a new wall in. I mean, you were adding to a wall.
But we're not making that decision here tonight.
Right.
We're giving you direction, you've got a violation. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to that?
Jeff Delisi, I represented the Cotes before the board. Wasn't aware of this hearing tonight. I think that if the Cotes had an issue with the fact that this wall was raised, they would have called me. And I kind of agree with the McKinnons that they're just adding height to a wall. I don't see how it really disturbs the resource area at all, and I think that my clients would agree with that.
Okay.
I just thought it was...
Appreciate that.
This would be nice if they could be on a case-by-case basis, and it would be up to a local authority to listen to abutters and to look at the area, but we need to get DEP to say something one way or the other.
And I don't disagree that this is an altered resource.
No, this requires a filing, and it's done now.
But it is, to Lisa's point, it's an altered.
I agree.
It's an altered resource, so it's not like we're disturbing a pristine dune.
No.
It's a beautiful place, but.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
This might say no to it.
Well.
Find out.
Well, let's find out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McKinnon.
Thank you for coming
Thanks for putting this
in.
information together.
There is one question.
Sure.
As far as the time of doing this, because they're summer residents, should we know when they're going and when they'll be returning, because they'll be out of state?
Do we have a way to contact them?
I have my cell phone, yes.
So your cell phone works everywhere.
We leave the first week in November.
Okay.
So you might
I
have
don't
an
know how long
answer.
the process takes.
Well, I think filing an NOI isn't something you probably do on your own, so you're going to have to contact somebody to help you with that, would be my guess. You know, there's,
What's an
Now,
NOI? What's an NOI?
On this one,
Notice
on
of
the
intent.
elevations, did somebody stamp this? Somebody stamped this information you just
Yeah.
sent to us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we have the
Well, this is
required
the
kind of
survey.
plan.
The land
Yeah,
surveyor.
That's a recent survey, though.
Yeah.
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 I mean, that
Month.
would do it as far as the requirements for the technical part of the filing.
Right.
And,
No, but just to fill it out.
right. But I mean, you don't need to hire an engineer now, because you've got this, right?
well, it looks like they got an engineer. There was
Right,
O'Brien, D. O'Brien Land Surveying,
right.
did this work for you.
So that part's
So
done.
maybe you can talk to them and see if they can help you with the NOI.
NOI.
Oh, it's just
Notice of intent.
Notice of
It's really a
intent.
permit application to us. So this is saying, I've done it, but I'd like to be allowed to keep it.
Where do we get the paperwork?
We get it online, or we can get it in the office. So we,
Swing by.
yeah, or if you,
have any in the office.
well, we can,
But you can get it
Oh,
online.
you can print it though for him, right? He doesn't know.
I think the surveyor would be, it's complicated. There's a lot of, in the notice of intent, they're going to ask for resource areas, they're going to ask for information that it would really typically require someone with a little bit of knowledge to put that together. So I think it would be good for you to
Happens to be
at
sitting in
least
the
start
room
by
right
asking
now.
your surveyor, who you've already hired, because he has some of that information, see if he can help you put that together. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Pat or Carol can help you with a few questions, but it's a fairly,
It's a detailed.
Could I just ask, if you say online, where would I go on?
the town website, you could go into, there's two different ways in.
computer?
Yes,
I can probably email you all the paperwork.
okay, that would be good.
You're a good student, Carol. Thank you.
I just don't like to leave something out. Because there's so many different places to get
It's,
it. Because DEP's like that.
Oh, yeah. I know.
so far is the lawyer.
I know.
His favorite guy so far is
what's 140 River Street, Pat?
This was, the wall in place, but what we decided, this is the wall, it was now been
Oh,
continued to fill
geez.
in, but the septic may have been dumped into, I can give you an update where we are. Septic may have been dumped into the river, so.
Yeah.
Board of Health sent a letter to them saying you have to show us your most recent pumpings for your septic. They didn't.
I hope we're coming down on this a little bit harder than just,
Right, no, we're letting this step go first. So they didn't submit that, so now she's requiring a septic inspection, which
you asked the other, if there's some that we should turn over to the state?
One.
And they
Yeah,
did
I
nothing.
contacted Corps of Engineers, and the woman we dealt with, I don't think
They
is
don't
there
care.
anymore,
They don't-
though.
no,
She
they
was pretty good, but I don't think she's there.
This has been going on for years, they don't care.
Yeah,
And they
Can
just
we-
keep doing more and more.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
like the Ayers one. I think it's time,
right, I think that we said to Jennifer, find out if they're pumped, and they may not have, but now they're gonna have to have a full inspection, but we can do a parallel thing and just.
Right, because whether that's pumped or not, the seawall is not
this is pretty small.
septic, yeah.
Yeah,
These are-
another enforcement order then.
Well, more than an enforcement order, I really think we have to pursue
Well,
that.
we
Double
gotta start with
secret
that.
probation.
The state, like Frank said, this is one of the prime ones.
Yeah,
The state says what.
right, which ones are not
State needs to take
cooperative,
it over
yeah.
from us, because we're getting
So what I'll
nowhere.
do is I'll send you a notice.
No.
I know, I was just kind of giving Board of Health a chance to get some response from them, and we may not
Right, but
get
whether
that.
they do or not's
Right.
really irrelevant
Still
to
have
our,
the wall.
let's start the.
But
We got,
didn't you send this to the
Alright,
state a
alright.
year ago and they didn't do anything?
Quarter 9.
To the feds.
It's 8:45 and we get some stuff to cover,
Oh,
so.
we
I felt
get
we'll
to
see.
go home. Can I do the orders now?
I mean, if
If you when do you leave?
I leave the first week in November.
If you're here on the 4th, we have a
Yeah, what are you
meeting.
gonna do next, orders?
What's the extension for Avon River?
So if this got in within the next week or so, we
That's
could have it on the
aquatic.
4th.
Okay.
Okay.
Control and the Aaron River.
Oh, they
Go
want
after
to
the
keep
dam.
Where the hell
It's
is
an
the
ongoing
Aaron
one
River?
that,
ongoing, right?
who contacted us about that? Was it?
There's a letter.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
something.
Where's the Arid River?
Oh, that's in Cohasset. goes into Lily Pond, right?
Right, but,
Oh, I know what that is.
but we abut to that and we have
Yeah.
interests
Okay.
in a piece of that. So this is just extending in order to do
Right.
that control?
Yeah.
And how long a period of time?
Don't we do a couple of years?
2 years?
I think it was 2 or 3 last time.
You can go that far.
Okay.
A motion that we extend Aaron River orders.
Invasive aquatic control?
Invasive aquatic control for 3 years.
Or second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Orders of conditions, Noah?
Yeah, I make a motion, we accept the orders of conditions for Noah as written.
We got a DEP number on that, right, finally?
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town of Scituate, 800 CJC, safety building.
I make a motion, we accept those orders as written.
Second?
Do we vote on that?
Huh?
Do we vote on that?
Yeah.
Just did.
We just did.
Just for the order, okay, for the orders, all right.
Yeah.
And for, there was a stormwater permit that was...
For which one?
what-
800?
Yeah, it was reviewed at the same time.
Yeah.
We had, conditions are included in what was...
Do we have to do those separate?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I make a motion that we accept the
Stormwater
stormwater
with conditions.
Permit, stormwater permit, yeah.
permit
Yeah.
with conditions as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Amara?
Amari.
Amari, 135 Old Oaken Bucket, Lot 2,
It's
new
kind of
build.
nice out there. I make a motion, we accept the conditions for 135 Old Oaken Bucket as written.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And Lindbergh, 265 Central Ave, Elevate.
That's going to be
I
good.
make a motion, we accept those
Yeah, they
orders
changed
as
those
written.
plans completely. It's
Yeah.
much
You think?
different. Yeah.
Gotta vote.
Okay.
Motion?
We have-
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right. And then certificates?
160 Jericho, they did not put any of the rounded stone or anything in. And I'm not sure who owns the place. The guy that was in from right next door, we thought he owned both.
Oh,
And somebody else, somebody out of state, I don't know how to reach them, but they're not ready at this point for a certificate.
Okay, that's easy.
That's an easy, Peggotty Beach Road, these orders go back to the 90s.
yeah.
There's no as-bills.
Is that the one with the shed and the...
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's no as-bills, there's no elevations, there's nothing
No,
out
nothing.
there, so,
That's not happening.
right, so that one's on hold. 769 Country Way. This is right in North Scituate, and it was a septic under the gravel parking lot,
Right.
close to the river, but they've put it as far away from the river as they can. And they've done whatever they needed to do.
And Board of Health is good?
Yep,
So they can get theirs,
yep.
okay.
24 Webster, we don't think we've received the check or the as-built on this one.
That's the one on the wall? The
new
one
one.
that burned down?
Just the fire, well, yeah.
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 Right. The plantings were in, but
Yes, they are.
unless we have an as-built submitted from before, which Gary and I looked around, we couldn't find it. So Mike Solomondo's involved in this, we have to check back with him.
He's involved in that one?
Mike is?
Is this the one closest to the opening or the one furthest?
Furthest north.
Furthest
Yeah, no,
north.
Mike did both of these. He did the first.
Mike did 'em?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but anybody remember whether he came in once for a certificate about the foundation, all this stuff, and then this was just around vegetation?
Yeah, they actually were in here arguing originally to keep all those concrete block walls and
Yes.
stuff.
Right,
Yes,
right.
And then
right.
some of them we said they could keep, they
Yes.
took
And
out
they
anyway.
filled,
But I
and
think
then
they
they,
crumbled or something on
oh,
it.
they filled sand.
Yeah, some,
Yeah.
the one, the parallel one
Right,
on the
right,
side is
right.
gone. and-
Yeah, that
Right.
But we
crumbled.
didn't see any as-bills that I know of on this, for the pilings or any of that stuff.
These are the ones that had the fire?
Yeah.
Yes, this is one of the ones that burned down.
Yeah, there's only 2 of them have been rebuilt so
Yeah.
far. No, I don't remember offhand
Don't either.
seeing.
Yeah,
No.
so the property owner asked Mike to see if he could get his certificate, and Mike emailed us, but there's no nothing
Yeah.
there
Then
that we
no.
could rectify.
Mike, did-
Well, because there's another step to that property. I think there's a like lawsuit going on between
Yes,
Mike and the
yes.
owner, and he was done before the house was finished.
That's why it's taken so long.
Okay,
So that's a big no.
that's a hold for now, too.
all right,
Okay.
I need to do the minutes next.
But we still
before he
got...
runs.
I know.
that, but
Okay.
he's gotta leave.
Oh.
Let her go for
I
next time.
make a
Yeah.
motion to accept the minutes for July 15th and August 5th of 2015 as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Carol. You do a good job on this. You really do.
All set?
Yeah, I guess so.
Anything else?
Yes, there
And
is.
turn the
One more
reins
thing.
over to
We have,
Mr. Harding.
we have a request for a
Yeah.
partial certificate of compliance, 214 Clap Road. And I believe we have some interested parties here.
I was not aware
Yes.
of.
Yes.
That's the last one. I didn't know that.
No, this happened today.
I don't know that.
I don't know. I'm going to ask Pat to explain.
Did he send out an email?
I don't know. He talked to Pat.
How did you find out? Okay.
Oh, we're still going to start from scratch.
I'm starting from scratch. Huh? Where is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
I didn't hear that. The easel got taken. Who's?
Did we lose the easel?
Yeah, we did. We had one. We started the night with one, and it's gone.
What, the easel?
Who do we blame?
Greg probably took it.
Oh, the easels are right back there.
Some engineer or attorney, right? Yeah, probably an attorney.
Yeah, it was a lovely.
Actually, who took it was Steve. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
He didn't even hear that. Oh, Lord.
Okay, well, good evening, and I don't want to make this longer than it needs to be by any means. I know that you've been through this before. I'm sorry I wasn't here last time you were here, and I realize that a lot of this will be repeated. But I'm going to ask you to repeat it anyway, so we're all on the same page, and see if we can come to some resolution to give the remaining members of the board here a chance to make a decision for you.
Thank you. I'm Joseph Iantosca. I'm here from Fern Properties. We're the developer of this project, and along with me is Deborah Keller. She's from McKenzie Engineering. She's the project engineer, as well as Matthew Watsky. He's our counsel for this project as well. I'll try to keep this brief, because I know it's getting late, and we want to move everything along. We're here to request a partial certificate of compliance for the subdivision, and there's two parts to that partial certificate. The first part, it relates to the order of conditions. There's an order that's in place, I believe, since February of 2013, 14, April of 14. The order of conditions relates to the design and to the construction of this subdivision, and we have substantially completed the work in adherence to and in conformity to with the certificate of compliance for this subdivision. We've submitted the as-built plans to date. There is some remaining work, that's why we haven't requested a full certificate of compliance. The major items that remaining are final paving for the street trees. There's some work on the sediment trap that is on the opposite side of Clap Road. And I believe there was some ongoing maintenance of the project that has to be ongoing on a yearly basis to maintain all the wet basin as well as the other vegetated basins within the project. Our engineer has sent multiple letters to the planning board as well as to the Conservation Commission stating that the work has been done in compliance with the order of conditions. I believe it's been reviewed by your peer engineer from Amory, and the work that has been done, Deb has certified that it's in substantial conformance with the certificate, and Pat Brennan from Amory has reviewed it, and he's in agreement that the work has been done. per the state law, we are required to, and we have an obligation to receive either a full certificate of compliance or a partial certificate of compliance if the work has been done. That is the first part. The second part of this project, back in February of 2013, the Conservation Commission, along with Fern Properties, entered into a settlement agreement that was drafted by Town Council, along with Mr. Watsky. And the reason why this was entered into, there was a dispute concerning the wetland delineation along the entrance of Clapp Road. And in order to come to a resolution and a compromise with the situation and to prevent further litigation, there was an agreement that was reached, and there were, for how it relates to this meeting, there are three major items that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first item in paragraph 4 requires a constructed wet basin, and that wet basin is in the area of the front of the subdivision, and that is to be constantly wet during the course of the summer and through the winter time, and a lot of wetland plants have been put into place, and it's supposed to filter the water out, and that's one of the newer designs for low-impact development.
If we're going up the driveway, is that the one on the left or the right?
It's on the left.
Okay, gotcha.
On
All
the right side, there's a replicated wetland that we put in place, and I can get to that a little bit later on. But the settlement agreement required a constructed wet basin in the front. It was designed accordingly, and it was built accordingly. And it's been put on the as-built plans, and it's in conformance with what the design was set out to be. The second item, paragraph 5, related to the repair or enhancement of drainage culvert under Thomas Clapp Road with the goal to reduce flooding. Initially, very early on, through the design process, the commission, as well as the neighbors and DPW, recognized that there was an issue from all the upstream and uphill water during a heavy rain event would flow over Clapp Road. In the wintertime, it would freeze. And so, as part of this settlement agreement, it was requested that we repair or replace the culverts that were going across the street. There's two of them. One is an easterly culvert and one is a westerly culvert. The third item that relates to this is that in paragraph 6, it says that no certificate of occupancy shall be issued and no lot shall be transferred or conveyed until a certificate of compliance, full or partial, is issued by the Conservation Commission for substantial completion of the work contemplated by paragraphs 4 and 5. 4 and 5 were the two items that I just mentioned to you relating to the wet basin and the culverts running across the street. So right now, we're in front of the board because we believe, and we've supplied the board with documentation that the work has been done according to the settlement agreement and according to the order of conditions. And we would like to get a partial release subject to the outstanding items that are remaining in order to complete the subdivision. Without that release, we're unable to get a certificate of compliance for any of the houses in there, which would preclude us from selling the houses, including the house that's existing right now. We can't sell that without being able to get an occupancy permit. And we're also prevented by the agreement that was signed by the board and by Fern not to be able to convey any of the properties until either a full or partial certificate of compliance has been issued by this commission. So that's why we're here requesting the partial. Based upon the last meeting and noting from some of the correspondence that you've had from abutters, and I know the planning board has received it, and as well as this commission, and we've worked hard to try to appease and work along with the abutters the best that we can. But there were a couple of items that were of concern at the last meeting when this was discussed. And the first item was the basin, which is the main infiltration basin, which is at the back of the subdivision. There were letters to the planning board earlier this spring that people were concerned about standing water inside the basin. And when that was brought to our attention, we met with the planning board, we implemented a plan, and the plan was to test the basin, test all the soils that were in place. Once it had dried out, we were to install monitoring wells to see what the water table was and to check to see if the design parameters that were used when the plan was developed were consistent to what was built on site. And so we monitored the basin throughout the course of the summer, and we, on site, once it was dry enough, the soils had to be quite dry to be able to examine them, we brought the site contractor from SLT. We brought the project engineer, Deb Keller, who's a professional engineer and is licensed. We brought Peter Dillon, who's a hydrologist, a hydrogeologist, and a geologist. And we also brought along Al Loomis from McKenzie Engineering, who is a licensed soil evaluator. So I think we had a solid team. We went out and dug multiple hand holes throughout that basin, as well as we brought a mini excavator in and dug some holes with inside. And the conclusion that the team brought up was that due to the amount of pumping of water that we had from our wet basin at the entrance of the subdivision up to a sediment basin that was right next door to the infiltration basin, it was causing a lot of extra water going into that basin that it wasn't designed to do. And the hydrogeologist he found soil indications in the soil that stated he felt that was the reason why the basin was holding water. And he felt that we should just go in and monitor the basin, but he felt it was designed according to the plan, and he said it should work according to the plan. And I believe Deb Keller forwarded a letter to the planning board and copied the conservation regarding that back in
August, end of August.
At the end of August. Okay. Subsequent to that, we also have been monitoring the basin since this was brought to our attention since mid-May. And Deb has sent a supplemental observation of the basin itself. We've monitored the amount of rainfall that we've received from a local weather station on Old Oaken Bucket Road. And we've stopped any pumping to the sediment basin because now we've planted everything in our wet basin. So we're not using the supplemental sediment.
Okay, so that's one of my questions, is why were you pumping out of there, but you wanted to get plantings in there, so that's why you were pumping stuff out of there at that time?
Correct.
I get it. Okay.
And there's a temporary basin right here, and the reason why it was put into place, it's because of the stormwater management plan. In order to construct the subdivision,
Yeah.
we want all the sediments to go up to a point over here. So when we were working to put the final plantings in the bottom of this, we didn't want to discharge the water across into the swamp. We pumped it up to a sediment basin, let the sediments collect. But what we found was, from the soil samples, that the water was migrating into the basin.
Gotcha.
Hard to believe, but that was the indication of the 4 engineers, or 3 engineers on site. Subsequently, Deb has monitored the rainwater and the basin since May, and since we've stopped pumping up there, after every storm event, within the course of 2 to 3 days, it's been dry.
Although admittedly, until the last week, we didn't have a lot of rain.
Well,
How many storm events do you have registered?
I've gone through all of the months, May through September, the full length, even including monitoring this last recent storm event, which was over 2.5 inches. And since I did the letter in end of September, I was only looking at the months of May through August, which we had a total of over 12 inches of rain, which came in heavy
Showers.
single
Yeah.
downpours of an average of 2 inches each time, 2 to 3 inches of rain.
So from May to September, there was how many?
Over 12 inches of rain, so it's 12 point something.
And what is the average? We're still 6 inches for the year below normal.
Yeah, for the year.
But if the basin wasn't functioning,
Yeah.
you would see the water still holding in the basin because it's not draining out of it. And so we've multiple storm events where, for example, I mentioned in the letter that there was a storm event between May 31st and June 2nd, which we received almost 2 inches, 1.91 inches of precipitation. And we followed that, and it did drain within a few days after that storm event. The next few months, again, there was an average of 3 inches per month, which
doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have a storm, within the 3 inches, 2 inches of that comes in one storm event. So you are seeing ponding during the storm event, but that would drain after the storm event is over. And that was, it's not in my letter, but we did follow through this last storm event where September 30th, I believe, it was over 2.5 inches of rain. And again, followed through in the basins drained, as well as the temporary basin is drained as well.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
So as far as the rear basin, that's the information that we have for the board up to this point. We were suggesting to continue to monitor that through this winter and spring. But as of right now, based upon our review, the engineer's review of what's out there, it seems to be functioning as designed. There's nothing for us to do with that at this point. The second item that was brought up during the conversation last week was the culverts that were constructed across Clap Road. There were 2 culverts, and there were sediment traps that were put on the outside of these, of these culverts. As I mentioned earlier, based on the settlement agreement and from input from the neighbors and the board and the DPW, the old pipes that were in there was a corrugated metal pipe, and what was in there, another pipe was back pitching towards the opposite side of the road, and one of them wasn't even discharging in the town of Scituate easement. It was located on someone else's property, and the reason why it was put in like that, because there was a tree that the DPW was trying to avoid. So we realigned those, we put them in according to the settlement agreement that we have. I'd just like to state to the board, because this has been mentioned several times in front of the board, that even though there are 3 pipes or 2 pipes in place, there's one culvert has 3 and one has 2. Deb can speak to this, but the peak rate of flow and the volume of flow from those pipes has not increased from our construction on the subdivision. The water that is the runoff from our subdivision is contained, and it's filtered within the subdivision. The infiltration traps, the sediment traps that are located on the south side of Clap Road, those were put in there to assist the town in meeting their MS4 stormwater requirements. Basically, if the water's not treated, which the runoff from Clap Road was never treated.
That's the sheeting problem, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That needs to be, there's sediment basins, and those are put into place in order to trap any sands or fines from flowing into South Swamp. It's not part of the drainage system for Studley Farm. All of the treatment of the water system from the water that's generated within that subdivision is treated within our subdivision.
I have a question on that, because you keep saying that it's not part of the stormwater. But the water, when it gets to a certain height, it's going to flow across the street. So it is part of, it's water from your property that went into the wet basin, and now it's going across the street. So how can you say it isn't part of the stormwater? It's coming from your property.
I understand what you're saying. I guess for clarification, I look at it from saying the development is required to reach certain criteria when it comes to treating stormwater, reducing sediments, as well as controlling peak rates so that we don't incur or cause flooding downstream. You're always going to have a discharge point, so you're always going to have water flowing off the site like it's always been doing. We're just taking the development, the roads, the impervious areas where we know we need to treat that water, treat it, and what Joe's saying is we're treating it on site so that we're cleaning it, meeting the criteria for stormwater management regulations prior to it discharging across the street where it was flowing before the development.
And it's not increasing that rate.
That's correct.
It hasn't been, the land has not been clear cut yet either. This is a real concern of mine. I want it to work. I want it to work, because I don't want to see flooding out there. But it hasn't been clear cut yet, and you know there'll be more runoff.
Okay. Did you have a third point of contention?
No, I have no points of contention.
Okay, I mean, you had two things that had been brought to your attention. Were there more?
No, that was it. I just wanted to
CFC.
finish out by
Sale of the
stating
sea.
that there is an issue that we've tried to reach out with Mr. Snow, and I believe his attorney, Mr. DeLisi's here tonight, regarding these sedimentation traps in the location. And I'd just like to state that we've built what was put on our plan and what we were permitted to do. And if there is a dispute or a property dispute regarding the sediment traps that have been constructed, we've reached out to Mr. Snow and would like to continue to reach out to him to come to some type of resolution and bring that back to the board.
Pat, let me ask you if I could. If this partial was to be granted, does that in any way affect the opportunity for the board to not grant a final in the end, if we found something wrong?
I think that, if you construct it according to the plan, is what they're asking. We've done it the way we've been, required to do it. Can we get a partial? We could issue that, and it's separate from a final order, certificate of compliance, which you may want to wait over a winter to do a final, because there had been some problems with drainage at one point. So you might say, well, gee, before we issue a final, let's see a winter and let's see how it drains. Now that the vegetation's in, the plantings are in, so they're kind of separate things. The final step is the big one, the certificate of compliance, saying, we've looked at it, it's been constructed right, it appears to be working. But this is kind of an interim step that they need to be able to sell the property.
Can I?
But, I mean, we may be waiting for a while for a final certificate.
Of course. Go ahead.
I've got two questions. One, may I? Very quickly. One is you broke you framed the discussion kind of in two parts, and the first part, our engineers agreed with you in terms of what has been constructed so far. But then the second part, the lower part, have our engineers come to agreement with you guys too on that piece too? I didn't hear that part. So
What lower, you mean the wet basin?
right, exactly right. Yeah, so everything that, and this isn't meant to be contentious, but everything that you're saying or contending, our engineers have said, yes, what they're saying is true. Right, okay. Secondly, I don't know if this is in the purview or not, but to Penny's point, are there additional storm water basins planned after the clearing, or is what is existing now supposed to take all of the additional water?
The basins, stormwater basins that are designed now are designed to treat and control up to 100-year storm for this development at 100% development.
With the cutting and, okay.
That's correct. That is correct.
That's one of the reasons up front that the limit of tree clearing was discussed and it was shown on the plan, because that's what the design was.
Because you had to figure out, okay, if we only go this far back, then.
And so when we came here on the prior meeting in early September, when we were searching for an RDA on lot number 9, one of the items that Pat wanted to be sure of is that the tree line was consistent with the submitted subdivision plan.
Paul, you got questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Lisa?
Yeah, I do, actually, for Pat. If we were to issue a partial, and then there's, again, there's a flooding problem, what is our recourse?
Well, there's always an enforcement order, or because you're not complying with the conditions. So if we said, gee, it's flooding somebody out, you have to fix this, that's part of the conditions. They have to maintain all the water on the site. So there is a recourse if things aren't going well.
I would like to add, too, that one of the items that we're bulleting that we're excluding from the partial is the continuation of the monitoring the rear basin. So if something does happen, we have that flexibility that we can still go in and work on them.
Okay. Now, will that cease the clearing until it's rectified?
I mean, if we discovered problems, we could
you
do a
tap-
cease
We
and
could do a
desist.
cease and desist.
Right,
Stop
yeah.
work,
Okay, and so all the work would stop until the flooding
Right.
was addressed and corrected again?
Right.
Okay.
My point is, I want this to work. I don't think you really understand. I really do want it to work. But my concern is, once you start partialing out, somebody comes in and says, I want to buy that lot, because you have your partial, okay? And if somebody else builds, they buy the lot and build what they want there. How often do we have the problem trying to enforce when a problem comes up? How often has it happened? How good?
Yeah, but that's after we do the whole,
But you're
Yeah, but you know
punishing
what?
people for something that
I'm not
could happen.
punishing. But I saw
Learning by
what
experience,
happened last
yeah.
year. We had a rainstorm, okay, just recently. This piece of property that the engineers, we all do the best we can. And they engineered and everything was perfect. And this is supposed to work. And this parking lot will never flood again. Well, because of the dryness, I think of the summer, the compact of everything, it flooded. So guess what? The calcs didn't work, did they? Because Mother Nature plays tricks with us. I'm not saying the next storm they're not gonna work, but they don't always work. This is a major, major project, and I'm really concerned. One thing I do, are you aware, in the wet basin, okay, the pipe that runs across the street, the wall of that basin is all crumbling under that pipe? I'm talking hunks like this are gone. I was there. If you, somebody needs to look in there. I'm talking, right here,
Yeah, that's
you have the box.
Yep, the outlet control box is here.
Yep, that control box, take a look inside. Hunks like this of cement at the base of the pipe that's supposed to take the water in. It's gone. Shocking. Somebody needs to look at that. The cement, it shouldn't do that, should it? Yeah,
Obviously,
you
if
need
it
to look
needs to
at it.
examine, if,
You need to look at it.
There was some adjustment there. that
I mean, I was shocked.
Mr. DeLisi.
Thank you. Jeff DeLisi, I represent Frank Snow, the property owner across the street. First, my understanding, just as somebody on the commission just asked, just inquired as to the ability to revisit any issues that might arise. My understanding is that the applicant is requesting a partial certificate of compliance, specifically that the project, that the commission issue a certificate of compliance except for conditions X, Y, and Z. And I just wanted to see clarification of that, because that was my understanding. If that's the case, once the other conditions, if this commission issues a certificate, they're gone. And my understanding is they cannot be revisited at that juncture. So I wanted to ask the commission, number one, to inquire as to that. Two, on the issue of whether or not there's an increase in flow, the commission's engineering report from Amory Engineering dated March 28th, there's a footnote on the second page, which is actually, it's a 2-page document, but it's, what I have is actually the front and back. So on the back of the first page is a footnote which talks about the culvert. And it says that we note that while the structure is designed to maintain pre-construction flows through the culverts under normal conditions, it will allow additional flow through the culverts during high flow. So it seems to me that there is some kind of, maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems to me like the town's own peer review consultant is saying that there is going to be some kind of increase during a high flow situation. Also, I greatly disagree that this is a private property dispute. We have a situation here where your order of conditions has multiple conditions which specifically deal with issues such as the applicant is the owner of the property, the order of conditions concerns all the drainage facilities, a maintenance plan has to be put in place, which I might add, the maintenance plan indicates that all the drainage facilities are owned by the applicant/owner, and that's not true. Their own plan shows it to be not true because there clearly is a discharge off of the property through the culverts. So I think that this commission, I'd like the commission to specifically address whether or not it can issue a certificate of compliance if the work is actually located on someone else's property, which Mr. Snow believes that it's not possible. He didn't authorize the work, and he's not a party to the town's agreement, and he's not a party to the order of conditions, and he's not a party to the operation and maintenance plan or the homeowners association that is put in place specifically by your order to maintain and clear and clean and ensure the proper functioning of these basins. So if he's not a party to that, I don't understand how this commission can issue a certificate of compliance with respect to those items.
Thank you. Pat?
Well, I think that if it was shown that he owned the property where these were placed, I think you'd be absolutely right. But until we see evidence that he owns it.
Well, I filed with you a plan.
But it has
stamped by
been
Northern Engineering.
right? We have plans stamped by the applicant and property owners.
That don't show the delineation of that land.
That,
So you have a plan that does and a plan that doesn't.
right, and that needs to be worked out, and according to our legal counsel, we're supposed to leave that out of the discussion on the, when we're talking about a certificate or a partial certificate of compliance.
Right, before this board, there's evidence that these structures are located on my client's property, and your order of conditions regulates these facilities, and the applicant, which is supposed to be the owner of everything that is shown on the order of conditions.
It's not evidence if it hasn't been proven. It's
Contention, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Stamp of a surveyor.
right, we have
Yeah,
stamp
right.
showing that another person owns it too.
Well, open up
so-
the applicant's plan. It doesn't show who owns the land on the opposite side of the street.
I mean, if part of the reason for those settling basins were to capture the street water from Clark Road, and it was initiated by our Public Works Department, they're not, they're not technically part of the stormwater for this development.
I don't see, I've looked through this file. I have not seen a letter from town council on this issue. I specifically spoke with town council, and he said that it's up to the commission, to me.
Well, I spoke with him today, and he said, separate the issues. Look at stormwater functioning based on our engineer's review. He said, this other thing will get worked out. And once it does, if it turns out it's someone else's property, we have to go back out, we have to make the new property owner part of this. I mean, we would have to take that step. If it's shown that that has anything to do with this property stormwater management. But as far as an order of conditions, if he is not shown as property owner, we would have to work that out through our legal counsel.
But you're discharging water from these basins, admittedly from the applicant today, on another property.
There were existing structures, cross culverts that are under a public way that have been upgraded through a settlement agreement and through the design and an order of conditions. I think when we speak of the homeowners association and the operation and maintenance of the drainage facilities they're the ones that treat the subdivision runoff. And it's not the two cross culverts that convey the stormwater underneath the public way. It's all of the treatment up gradient of those two cross culverts. Those two cross culverts are still owned by the town of Scituate, not owned by this development.
So if the pipe...
Can I just finish
Yeah.
first? I'd like to go back to your first statement, which references Pat Brennan's footnote. To clarify that, if you read further on, he states the additional flow through the culverts is the water that would flow across Thomas Clack Road under pre-construction conditions. So basically what he's clarifying there is that we're taking the water that used to sheet flow and cause the safety concerns that the town had for this area going over the road, and we're putting them underneath the road through the pipes. Therefore, the need for more pipes than what was originally in those existing conditions.
The only response to that would be what Greg Morse had indicated at the last hearing. I know, Richard, that you were not at the last hearing. Greg had explained that he had done an analysis that indicated that there was a concentration of water into these drainage basins on the opposite side of the street that wasn't there in the pre-existing condition.
That I would respectfully disagree, with Greg on that fact, to the extent that the majority of the storm events, meaning your 1 and 2 and 3 year storm events, are running through the existing pipes before, as they are now. So the constant water that's feeding that wetland is still making it to the wetland across the street in the same form and fashion that it was before. All we're doing is taking the flooding conditions, the higher storm events, and rather having it sheet flow over, which is what Greg described, in a larger or a wider path over Clap Road and putting it through a pipe. So in a flooding condition, you would assume that that wetland is already saturated with water, so you're not actually impacting those discharge points.
Okay. Deb, one thing, just want to refocus this a little bit, because the discussion and the dispute between the parties about the effect of the project is all really besides the point. We had an entire presentation to the board during the permitting process. You had the town's peer review engineer provide the Conservation Commission with its input, and the conclusion was that the design complied with the town's wetlands protection and the state wetland protection regulations, and the permit was issued. Kinds of arguments that Attorney DeLisi is making might have been appropriate in the permitting proceeding, to lay it out with you and have you get additional peer review perhaps on whether you should issue the permit. But what we have now is a permit that's been issued. The project has been constructed in a way that's consistent with that permit and that plan. And now you have a certification from our engineer as well as a confirmation from the town's peer review engineer that the work has been done in a way perfectly consistent with the approved plan. Well, I can say I absolutely disagree on the legal issue that Attorney DeLisi is trying to make about whether the additional water that he's claiming is permissible or not. But that becomes a private issue in terms of permitting. The Wetlands Protection Act, the town's bylaw. We've got a permit. We built something consistent with the permit. We have engineering certification that it was built consistent with the permit. And now we're asking for a certificate of compliance consistent with the permit, consistent with the regulations in the statute.
Partial.
Partial, right. And actually, in fact, if you look at the McKenzie Engineering letter about what it's requesting for the certificate, it's specifically excluding from the request for a certificate of compliance the final approval of the sediment traps that are on the southern side of the road, because we understand that we'll have further discussion with them. But we are looking for a complete certificate of compliance for the construction part of the detention basins and the pipes. Other things that are going to be, that are still omitted from the partial certificate. We're not looking for a complete certificate on the revegetation of the wet basins. That still needs to go through another growing season.
Right. Pat, let me put you on the spot a little bit. As far as you've seen from all of the engineering, have all of the regs been met? Have all of the construction permitting?
Not being an engineer, we rely on Pat Brennan for
Right.
that. So, number of times we've passed on information saying to him, does this make sense to you, and can you go out and take a look? So these last 2 visits out there, he said it's built-in compliance. One of the things that Penny brought up was, once you clear the trees, what happens? And all of these lots, I mean, the houses have to direct roof runoff into infiltration basins and things, so that each lot is going to be trying to take care of some of the rainwater too. I mean, there's going to be a certain amount of vegetation that's left on the lots, others captured. So these basins are mostly, you know, the roadways and the walkways and that kind of stuff. So, you know, that's...
Is there...
Just quickly, I might suggest that if the applicant is voluntarily agreeing not to request a certificate of compliance concerning the basins on the southerly side of the road, perhaps it makes sense to also accept from a partial certificate just the lots that have the basins themselves, so that this commission can revisit any issues that might arise from those basins in the future.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, Jeff.
Well, my understanding is that there are lots that are designated, that some of these lots actually, like the house lot, for instance, I can't see the plan, but my recollection, and I could be wrong, is that the basin is located on the house lot. I don't know if it's separated or located on the house lot or what, but my suggestion would be that if there's a question as to the performance of the basins over a period of time and it proving out, which is what Penny had indicated at the last hearing, perhaps it makes sense to issue a certificate of compliance, but accept from that, the basins themselves, so that you can properly monitor it. And those are connected in any event to the culvert on the opposite, that goes under the road and discharges to the opposite side of the street. So from my perspective, it would make sense to perhaps do that. And that's all I'm suggesting.
Deb, I saw you nodding your head. Did you understand what...
Yes, he's saying if there's a lot that has the drainage basins, so we have the 2 drainage basins, the one in the front and the one in the rear. They're both, per planning board, they're required to be on their own parcels, so they're on separate parcels. They're not on any individual
So
lot.
it isn't the property of the existing house?
No,
Yeah.
the property line is here. The only thing that's on a different lot is the closed drainage here from the rain garden tying to here. So the basin itself is on its own parcel.
See, I have to, and I'll be quiet after I make this last statement. I have to look back before anybody, this was pristine, okay? I'm going back a few years when you probably purchased it. The house, the existing home, a sump pump ran 24/7. Every day that sump pump was running. Where was the water coming from? Pristine, the woods were full, the trees were sucking up their water. There was a lot of water coming from somewhere. And I just want to get through another winter and a spring and say, it works now. That's kind of my plea. I want to be sure it works this time.
I understand your concerns, Penny, but the problem I have, just procedurally how we're operating, they presented a plan, we approved the plan, they built the plan, we hired an engineer to review the plan. If the engineer said it didn't comply, what would we do? We'd deny a partial COC. The engineer says it complied. So they're doing everything we're asking them to do, and then we're just kind of saying, well, because the sump pump ran all the time.
Because the last time out, the engineers said it would work and it didn't work.
But that's not what they're here about, is the last time. They're here with their plan that they've
For their
been
property.
reviewed by
And
an
everybody
engineer.
says it's gonna work. I don't,
Okay,
okay, this is,
Right.
you do your thing, I'll do my thing.
okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that has anything they'd like to add? Had anything more from you? We need a motion.
We're looking for negatives, or what?
No, this
So
is just
phrase it.
to issue a
Where-
partial
where,
lot to...
I make a motion to issue a partial C of C. Do I have to come up with the?
Studley Farm.
Studley Farm.
I second.
Let me just ask, were there any, in your motion, were there any exclusions, addendums, anything that you...
They already have them listed, so the...
Just want to make sure.
With the, yeah, with the conditions that are already applied, yeah. So we have a second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Aye, nay.
Carries.
Lisa, you abstaining? She has to say something. Doesn't really matter.
You can say either. You can
What do
say
you-
whatever you want.
My only concern is what Jeff DeLisi said, that, I mean, Pat thought we had a recourse with them if this again fails. From what I'm understanding from Attorney DeLisi, that is not the case. We are not going to have a recourse with them to fix it.
We'll have an open...
Right now, they've complied, right? They've complied with what they're supposed to do, and you're refusing a partial COC when they've complied.
I mean, it
So
passed
when you're not
regardless.
happy with the property,
No, no, no.
and
So-
they come back
so
to get
it-
refresh,
They can comply, but if it fails, then how about this? Yeah, I'll grant them this, but if it fails, I would like to see them step up to the plate and fix it. I just don't want to lose the
when they
control
come back for
if it fails
a
again.
full COC, you can say no.
Exactly.
Just like you were talking about doing now. You can say no.
This does not finish the deal.
Right,
They've
this
got to
is a
come back
partial.
for a
This is
final.
saying
This
the
is only a
stuff that
partial.
they've done and was
That's why I
reviewed.
asked the question in the first place. Are we bound in if something goes wrong? The answer is no.
But if something fails in the meantime, too, we have an open order of
open order.
conditions. We definitely have a lot of say at what goes
And
on.
if the lots are all sold, isn't the only recourse we have at the homeowners?
Homeowner association is usually after all the lots sold, but, I mean, we'll know by then whether the stormwater is working, whether, you know.
Excuse me, I just want to add in too, I mentioned this at the last meeting, but I reviewed the numbers. There's almost $80,000 in cash bond with the planning board for items when we had the lot release back in November of last year. And subsequent to that point, we've done probably another 25 or 30% of the remaining items that were on that list. So there's an excessive amount of cash that's available to the planning board in order for anything in the subdivision that doesn't comply. And it's not a performance bond, it's cash. And for the plantings, I believe the Conservation Commission has an additional $1,600 to make sure that the plantings that were put in the wet basins survived. So you have the recourse of an enforcement order if something doesn't work there, such as some other subdivisions that I've noticed Wednesday with all the flash rain and all the muds going down the street. Pat can come by and the board can issue an enforcement order if we need to do that. We are still going to require a certificate of compliance to complete this project. And if we don't finish the road and the drainage system and everything else, we don't have that full certificate, and the homeowner's going to want to get that as well as us as a developer. And I've been in business, I have not been out of business and in and out. I've been in business for well over 30 years. And it hasn't been multiple entities and going out and stopping and coming back. We have a history of development projects much, much larger than this. And we stand behind what we've done. And I believe that every time that the planning board has asked us through the development phase and through the building phase, as well as the Conservation Commission, when an item's come up, we've addressed it. And I think, Pat, when you've mentioned something that needed to be done and when Laura calls us, we've been attentive to it. So, thank you very much.
Well, the partial did pass. Thank you for your attention. Sorry it took so long. And
Long time no see.
Excuse me, Pat, is there anything else we have to attend to tonight?
Get done with business. We can
Want a motion
let
to
this
close?
guy go
Yeah,
home.
motion to close.